everybody. It's time for the show, as they would say. Welcome to a special kind of report, as I kind of jokingly called this, a special little roundtable event talking about the issues that are going on in gaming. Why are people down on gaming? And this goes from both the consumer side, the industry side. I kind of had four little bit of a skeletal framework about that of just 4 points I personally myself thought were the big ones. And I was talking to a few people in our little Discord. I was talking to some of my friends, and I kind of said, well, why don't we just have a nice, fun conversation about it and kind of have like, a little round table. Unfortunately, two of them will be a little late. One of them's doing dad duty. One of them is out there running around doing a quick errand. But Grim's on time, so there's that. Hi, Grim. How are you doing, buddy?
Well, hey there. Thanks for having me again. It's been a little while, but happy to be here. And these conversations are always a lot of fun. I enjoy just diving deep into whether it's the economics of gaming, which is a lot of what we'll be talking about today, or just gaming in general. I really enjoy this talk. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, and I always enjoy having Grim on because I like his analytical, kind of just like straight to the point takes. Obviously, just one of those guys that I love to have because you're not a YouTuber, you don't do this stuff, and it just feels like there's no nonsense in your thinking. So it's always good to have just one of these guys on who can provide that anchor to just kind of maybe level out some takes. And we'll be joined, as I said, a little bit later by both Nerd Takes and Mr. Angry Canadian. And I can't wait to just hear a little bit more about some of these issues, as I was saying, because AC does live in Japan. So I want to hear more of his takes too, from just the Japanese economy and the games market over there too, because it's something I think people should consider more. Because most of the time when people are attacking or getting upset, they only focus more on just like where they live or from like the Western gaming side of it.
Yeah, especially with how much historically a lot of the game development scene is focused in Japan. I mean,
Mhm.
those developers, they don't become developers unless they started off as gamers usually. And if the gaming industry is not thriving over there, that means the development industry will deteriorate. So
Yeah.
I think that's a really important perspective to get, is just how things are looking in Japan and across Asia as a whole, really, because we're seeing a lot of changes in Korea and China as well, as far
Yeah.
as gaming.
Yeah, I've also tried to get on some people too. I got a friend that lives in the Philippines. Unfortunately, he was not able to make it. I would like to hear his thought. And of course, some other people I know from Canada and as well from the Dominican Republic. I try to get their perspective. I've heard a little bit of their perspectives, because a game, a new modern game in Canada costs like 100 Canadian dollars. And that's just insane to think about. Could you imagine if a game here cost 100 American bucks?
I mean, it's honestly not that hard to imagine with all the discussions leading up to GTA 6. Like, everybody's like, what's the price going to be? What's it going to be? Is it going to be 80, 90, 100? Um, there were some, I don't know, we'll call them journalists, quote, air quotes here, who were wanting it to be 150, $200. So yeah, it's unfortunately, and maybe it's just because our imaginations are being stretched by what the corporations are doing right now. Um, it's not
Yeah.
that hard to imagine.
Well, I feel like the first point I kind of want to delve on here because the other ones I think uh, this one will be easier to keep going, and the other ones I think will be a little bit shorter and sweeter. But I had 4 points, everyone. So the first, I'll just read them off real quickly. And it was like number one is the economy, number two is prices, number three is competition, and number four is excitement. I want to go with my point three. Point number three, competition. And this is what I originally wrote down as just some brief thoughts of me just thinking out loud. And Grim, I would like your opinion about what I said and have you kind of join in as well on that thought, as well as everyone in the chat. Everyone in the chat, I want to hear from you guys, and we respect everyone's opinions, and everyone's different. So this is an open topic, so don't be afraid to say I'm stupid or offer your own opinion as well. So let me go right on to this. So point 3, competition. Inside the gaming industry, it's an insane battle as well. Companies being more backward compatible has created more competition for gamers. Older games on digital fronts that allow it are priced at $20 and lower, with remakes and ports adding to this. There's a massive pileup of indie games with every YouTuber trying to make or promote them, even as AAA devs move away from this. Simply put, we have way too much choice in how we spend our time and money. Some options cost $0 upfront, like Fortnite, while Epic Games, Amazon, PS Plus, Game Pass, and Nintendo Online offer games as part of a subscription. Gamers don't have to spend much if they don't want to. So my basic thoughts there was just basically as somebody who collects and just retro gaming and really does enjoy kind of like the hobby itself. Um, we just have way too much competition, and that goes with subscription services, freemium games, mobile games, obviously. As I said before, remakes, backwards compatibility. So even now, compared to the old times when generations were hard cut off and backwards compatibility wasn't really a thing, now we have so much girth, I guess you could say, of games. We could literally go back and buy Witcher 3, getting an Xbox and a PlayStation 5 update for $5, and that's
Not to mention Witcher 2 and Witcher 1.
exactly. And you have all this competition now where you are basically competing against games from 20, 30, 40 years ago, both in its original and remade form. And Grandma, since I know you read that and you were thinking about it, I read that to everyone out in the audience. What do you think about that? What would you like to critique my point, add something to it, so on?
Sure. Yeah, I think right now it's an interesting space as far as competition is concerned because we're seeing this on a two-pronged front. You have first the AAA industry. You have the likes of Grand Theft Auto, Fallout, Call of Duty. You've got like the major releases on one end,
Mm,
and with the exception of something like a Call of Duty, for the most part, these games are now coming out 5 or 6 years apart. Um, and so they're not releasing very often. And so when each one of these comes out, in theory, it should be a big event. Um, but the reality is, a lot of these games are not hitting for players in the ways they used to.
hmm
Um, so I would say there's in some ways maybe not enough competition in the AAA space. I can expound on that further.
hmm
Another issue, though, as far as the AAA space, and I want to focus in on that first,
Fine.
is a lot of these AAA games are now open world, or if they're not open world, they're open design. They're not linear. They have repeatable content. They have multiplayer modes,
hmm
and they are designed to keep you playing for hundreds of hours.
Right.
And so, whether it's those freemium games you mentioned, like a Fortnite, you've got like Genshin Impact, um, all the gotcha games, right? Uh, They're free up front, and they keep you playing for dozens or hundreds of hours. Um, and so there's competition in that way, in that you have to drag people away from these forever games. But then on the indie side, I think that's where the more interesting conversation is as far as competition, because with the indie games, you have every possible niche is covered. If anybody comes out with a brand new idea or a new take for a game, like a few years ago, we had Vampire Survivors. Now, if you look at Steam, if you look at the releases on Steam every month, this sort of died down in recent times, but you'll see a half a dozen Vampire Survivors clones. Recently, I've noticed there's a large number of Idle clones, where you not quite as simple as cookie clicker, but something along those lines, where it's an idle game where you just have a basic progression loop, and you have a Vampire Survivors sort of style. You pick from one of three upgrades, and then you automatically level up. The game plays itself, um, and these are just coming out one after another every single day.
Right.
So again, from the competition perspective, I just wanted to take that in a couple different directions. One is AAA. A lot of the traditional AAA there's not enough competition, I would argue. With the forever games, they're sucking up all of the competition. And then in the indie games, there's far too much competition.
Right. Just to kind of get you, just stop there for a second. Jay, thank you for joining us. Just wanted to
hello.
Say welcome real quick there. Don't want to make you feel like you're left out.
No, I didn't want to interrupt the thought. I said, don't worry about introducing me. There's plenty of time for that. So I didn't want to interrupt the thought that was going on there. So
yeah.
No worries.
So we're talking about competition. I sent you just a quick note of what I said. Just
yep. I just skimmed through it. Yep.
Yeah. So I feel like since Grim had his chance to talk about competition real quick, did you want to add something about game competition after listening?
I guess, I mean, well, for starters, I guess to just kind of jump in on competition, I do think there's a lot of it out there. And I think we're seeing it at multiple levels of gaming, whether it's indie, AAA, whatever. And I do think it's good overall, because I do think through competition, things get pushed forward, games get pushed forward, new ideas, original IPs, all that kind of stuff. So I do think it's good. I think where you have to wonder, like, does it have its faults that hurts gaming a bit? Is there too much? Is there too much out there for any one thing to succeed or any few things to succeed in the ways that they used to? And does that kind of shake up some game sales, things like that, where we see some of these kind of counter effects of layoffs, things like that, bottom dollars getting hurt for these companies, and we've seen studios close, all that kind of stuff. So I do understand that that's a potential bad side effect of it. Because as I was reading some of what you said, I do think you're right that there is only so much time. I mean, look at me, I'm 15 minutes late to the show because just ran out of time today. It's like people only have so much time in their lives to play so many things, watch so many movies, if you happen to be into both. TV shows, sports, whatever it is you do to get through, your time away or time to relax and unwind, your time away from work and stuff like that, rather. There's only so much of it, and there's so many different options. Now, again, like we just talked about the competition and gaming itself, but a lot of this stuff has fallen over. People like me, I'm interested in gaming, movies, TV, sports, all of it. So, like, gaming is also competing with all of that as well. Now, that's separate from the gaming industry. There's obviously always going to be a lot of different industries out there for entertainment, but it is something you have to consider.
For a second. I know I cut you off, but this is something that, we see a lot of these gaming CEOs talk about, and if you're on Twitter, you see these people kind of crucify it because it's like, oh, Xbox, they're talking about they're competing with TikTok and everything else. I'm like, well,
they are like that. Yeah. I didn't even think to mention social media yet, but that's another one. Like, you are like, dude, think about how much time people doom scroll. You might lose hours of your evening on the couch doom scrolling, not even realize you've spent hours doing it. Like, again, it's time to unwind, whatever. And if that's what it does for you, that's fine. But, like, it is still time. Like, you don't get that 2 hours of doom scrolling back somewhere else in your life. Like, that's time used, time gone. And that's a major thing a lot of people do that gets them by as a form of entertainment. So you're also up against social media, which is massive. So, like, yeah, that's another hat in the ring of, like, fighting for people's attention, essentially, because, like, that's what it is at the end of the day. Is it's, can you garner our attention and hold on to it, whether it be short time or long time, depending how these companies and industries want to capitalize on that. But, like, our attention is what they're buying or trying to sell us a product so that they can get that in return. Like, yes, they want the money, but it is attention, because you can't really sell games if people aren't interested in playing that game. Like, that attention needs to be there. You can't continue to make movies people aren't interested in. The attention needs to be there and remain there. And it goes for all that kind of stuff when it comes to entertainment. If the entertainment's poor, the attention won't be there. So, yeah, they want the money, but what they really want is, like, these lifelong customers who, they can one studio, one developer can make a bunch of games. A studio can sell a bunch of games, publish them. Same for movie studios, can make a bunch of movies if they have trust in, look at Marvel, for example. They had trust in their fans and audience for so long. They were able to make movie after movie, basically print money and not even have to really even think about it. It was just a thing. Then they lost that. They lost a lot of that over the past few years. Now that whole thing is shaken up to something different. So, it can happen to any company in any industry. And I think you do see it happen in the gaming industry for sure.
Yeah, and you brought this up too, Grim, about how these AAA games have just become giant open world time sinks to keep you kind of invested in everything too. And Grim, I kind of want to ask you a little bit more on this. Like, there's not enough AAAs, and I want to hear what your thought about that is. I feel this has been kind of one of those things that always kind of bothers me, I guess, online. And what defines AAA? Is Persona a AAA game? Are Nintendo games AAA games? Like, it's one of those things for me personally, where I sit down and go, well, what is a AAA game? Is Resident Evil AAA, or is Persona a AAA game because it's made by Sega proper and these big publishers?
Right.
And I kind of want to hear what your thoughts are about that too, since you brought this up.
Well, first off, I'll say that the definition of AAA versus indie versus quadruple A or even AA is all sort of nebulous. There's definitions that are based in specific terminology, but at the end of the day, it's almost like a genre of games or movies or TV or music, right? Where the genre is a shorthand for people in the know to explain quickly, hey, I'm talking about this kind of a thing. A Souls-like game we recognize as an action game with hardcore elements, lock-on camera, third person, typically, very difficult bosses. A Metroidvania is a 2D platformer with progression mechanics. So, that's when we say AAA, I think it's lost a lot of meaning. I'll be a little more precise in what I meant earlier when I said there's not enough AAA games. I would say rather it's a lack of games that are of a scale larger than the typical indie budget. And this is where a lot of the discussion online comes to. We need more AA games. And this is where something like, I would argue Atlas could be counted as AAA, but this is where you get back to those Expedition 33. We know that they had support studios, but let's say a core team of 30 people, or a core team of 50, maybe even all the way up to 100 people. Those smaller development teams seemed to, in the past, be able to deliver games that were good enough for player expectations. They had a more focused direction. And we don't really care that much about graphics. And now the modern engines that we use are good enough that if we have a relatively solid art style, the graphics almost come naturally. Most players, I would say these days, and again, maybe this is mostly in the hardcore, care more about frame rate than graphics. So that's sort of just to define what I mean by needing more of these kind of games. We need more games in the high budget or high to mid budget sort of sphere that are not forever games. That's what I mean. And it feels like there's just not enough competition in that space. That's what I mean.
It's funny that. Sorry, 1 second. There we go. It's funny that when we talk about this stuff, I remember, for example, back in 2019, I want to say it is 2019, 2018, when Devil May Cry 5 came out. And I remember being online and I would just see, the worst place ever. You go online and you just see probably the worst opinions that you could ever see. It's just everyone's a hot take factory of how everything's terrible. But I look at Capcom games like Resident Evil, Devil May Cry, so on and so forth, like big, flashy, fun kind of games, iconic games in the gaming history, obviously Resident Evil and stuff like that. And they probably have more budget behind them because I think we can agree Capcom is a AAA developer. They're a AAA publisher. They're one of those rare publisher and developers. And I just remember people were like, "Why am I paying $60 for a game I could beat in 5 hours?" And I would just sit there and I go, "Do people not want to replay video games anymore?" And I feel like a lot of that too kind of has went back onto these developers a little bit too, because now everyone's like, oh, we got to justify our budgets, we got to justify people staying in these games because gamers don't want to buy games where you could beat the game in like 5 hours, and they don't want to go back and replay these games and learn how to do the crazy combos, unlock all the trophies, unlock all the special events anymore. And I feel like that's a little bit sad because especially with a lot of these people who claim to be like, oh, gaming was only good after I graduated middle school and it's been downhill ever since. I'm like, well, a lot of those games you played as a kid, you replayed them probably like 7, 8, or 9 times sometimes just because you didn't buy games as much as you can now. That's another thing. And I do feel like that's also been hurting a lot of the industry, is just constantly trying to figure out consumer demands, like you're saying. It's there's so much mixed messaging that comes out of just people in the comment sections about, well, I don't want to spend X amount of dollars on a game that could beat this long, or it's like, oh, I don't want the games to be giant open world bug fest, I just want linear games. And I do wonder, when I hear these arguments, sometimes I sit there and I just go, I don't know what you guys want other than maybe buy more than just 2 games a year. That would be my opinion, but obviously budgets and time frame for everyone's a little bit different. But it does feel like when people expect the world from a AAA game, and then when the AAA game doesn't match the fantasy in their head, their own headcanon, as I like to say, a lot of people just kind of just tune out and just start to just go on to complain mode without actually playing the game itself,
Mm-hmm. Well, I feel like, it in situations like that, it can be a little bit multi-layered. I mean, off the bat, let's just say, yes, there are people who just love to complain. I mean, it is what they do. They're just kind of complainer type of people, and they complain. It is what it is. Like, so be it. That is, I don't think any company should really worry too much about ever satisfying those people, because if you're a complainer, you're probably going to complain again, no matter what. Even if something's 99% perfect, you'll probably take the time to go ahead and do some kind of tweet complaint about that 1%, because you can't just let it go. That much is what it is. I don't think any company in any industry should bother all that much about worrying of how to gain that person or get them to not, to finally have no complaints for whatever you've produced. It's just unlikely to happen.
Right.
However, on the other side of it, mixed in with a lot of the people who do that are people with probably legitimate complaints that a game that they were hoping would be worth, their money spent, even if they knew it would be short, may just not be the game they were hoping for in terms of objectively kind of critiquable things, if that's even a word. Things you can't critique where, maybe it is mechanics, gameplay, story, whatever, where the game really isn't as good as you thought it was going to be or wanted it to be. And that $60 for a 5-hour game kind of hurts because it's not going to have that replayability. That's where I would shift a little bit of that layer, or at least one layer to this whole equation, to the gaming companies. They do have to still make games that are enjoyable enough that people do want to go back in and collect all the trophies, unlock all the skins and all that kind of stuff. So I think there's an extreme side of it that is, again, not going to be happy as with anything. But there are also people mixed in with that side that's unhappy with, a $60 game that's 5-hour game, or whatever it may be, that are legitimate and have legitimate complaints. So that's fair as well. Now, in terms of the difference between gamers, that's also going to be something that I don't think, again, in any industry, you should focus on trying to, I know people want to get the masses involved, involved in whatever it is they're creating, whether it's movies or games or whatever. But you can't always do that. So like there are people who just aren't interested in 40-hour open world games that it feels like a slog to them to get through. Me personally, I love those kind of games. So like if it's well made, I have no issue going through the whole 40 hours and then investing my own extra time just to unlock and collect everything else. Then there's going to be people who do just want that 5-hour game that they can pick up, put down, whatever, replay as much as they want. So whatever the overlap is between those two kinds of gamers, I think it's great if you can get that. But when you have a vision for a game, I think you just have to make it for what you want it to be. If it's an open world 40-hour game, then it's got to be that for that crowd, that audience. You hope maybe you can pull some people from a different crowd into it because of, good word of mouth or interest or good reviews, whatever. But in terms of trying to capture that base, I think it's something you shouldn't bother doing all that much because your base wants what it wants. So I think when companies try to get into that middle zone, it's when a game feels a little bit just disjointed, like doesn't know what it wants to be, and you kind of get this mess of a game that doesn't really sink into either side because maybe it has the 40-hour story, but it's super bland and empty and doesn't have what you need in terms of like the high grinding gear and all this kind of stuff that gets your long form RPG players to stay involved and stay engaged because they wanted to take some of that out. So the 5-hour game player can have a simpler system to understand and also play through a 40 hour. So you know what I mean? Like you fall in that kind of opposite of a sweet spot where you've tried to do too much at once and then a game, kind of falls flat on its face and doesn't really hit either market that you're aiming for. So my advice to that would be, again, know your audience. I think overall, know your audience and know your hecklers, I guess, who, are never going to be on board for whatever you do anyway. So don't worry about them. Just try to focus in on crafting something that's, one, your vision as developers, the game that you want to make that you think your audience wants, but then also just focus on delivering that to them. That would be my best suggestion.
Grim, do you want to add on to something? Because I want to counterpoint to that too, there, Jay.
Yeah, sure. I just want to add on to what Jay said actually, because I mostly agree with what he's saying, and I just wanted to bring up the idea that gaming is a market. It's an open market, like any market. Yes. There are many different customers, different consumers who are looking for different things. And I think oftentimes when we discuss the game industry or the trends in the game industry, it seems like perhaps publishers are taking a simplistic take. And I assume they can't be. There's different publishers who specialize in different things. But it seems like a lot of the AAA industry, at least, is focused on this sort of mythical cash cow every gamer, when the reality is, as Jay pointed out, you have people who like the 5-hour games and you have people who like the 40-hour games. And you try to get them to cross over and come over and buy your big game. The reality is, though, the average gamer, not the hardcore gamer, not the people, not us, not the people listening to this, but the average gamer who buys Call of Duty and FIFA and then maybe one other game a year.
Ball and guns, baby. Ball and guns.
Ball and gun gamers.
Yeah, I know a few.
Or even mobile gamers. Like people playing Candy Crush or playing Call of Duty Mobile or playing Fortnite on their phone, right? Like those people, those are the only games they're playing. And you're not going to pull them into your niche like other game. So I think there is, as far as competition is concerned, we're maybe with these games that are trying to appeal to everyone but aren't these forever games. They probably need to scale back what they're trying to do. Focus in on that core audience instead of trying to gather everyone. And if you build your business around trying to get everyone to buy your game, but you're not one of these forever games or you're not a live service, it's probably not going to do well in today's market.
So one thing I would like to say, that I like how you brought today's market up there. I do appreciate that, Grim, because I'm going to now talk about the past. Basically, ever since I've been starting to do my legacy loading series, one of the things that I've noticed a lot is a lot of these devs never go into making a video game project thinking it's going to be niche, it's going to be small, per se, especially in the AAA industry. They always try to figure, what do we do to try to kind of get like the widest net that we can get? Onimusha, they've talked about hiring handsome actors to try to get women involved in buying the games. One of the things that people cited why arcades kind of died out was because people became too good at fighting games and drove away all the casuals and helped drive down people's excitement to go to an arcade because there were just people who got too good at the games.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing too is when I look at the past here, you never know what's going to be a success, and that carries over today as well. I think Grim and Jay. I don't know if you guys know, but I'm pretty sure you would know this one more, Jay, and I think you might know this one more too, Grim, differently. So, two games from the PS2 era that had two very different trajectories, just because of they were priced very well and competitively. Katamari Damacy and 2K5, NFL 2K5. Games that came out for $20 on the PS2, two completely different games. One of them became a very successful franchise on its own, and the other one was so good that Madden had to buy out the license to kill it in its crib because they were both sold for $20. I don't know necessarily if people can just point to something like, okay, well, we got to try to focus down on these games. We need to make them more linear. We need to make them more over huge and stuff like that, because the biggest problem I think as well is just these gamers, like I said, they don't necessarily want to have a diverse kind of catalog of games, even though they say they do, that they want more competition and stuff. Like you were saying, Grim, a lot of these people are trying to get hooked. Well, let me rephrase that. These companies are trying to hook them into being in their ecosystem. They're trying to hook them into playing these games forever. And I do agree with you on that one, where I do think these devs should focus in more, and they should try to make smaller budgeted games overall, because I think from the FTC leaks and the Insomniac hack that happened, some of these game budgets have ballooned to be unacceptable, especially for the time period that they are. We're talking 200, 300. Some are even saying like $1 billion to develop a game. That's absolutely unheard of, and you're not going to be able to make your money back on some of these games, even if the games are good. I think case in point, Doom Eternal. I'm not Doom Eternal. Doom the Dark Ages. Doom the Dark Ages was sold way better at launch than Doom 2016. But by all accounts, it probably did not sell as well as Doom Eternal. And Doom Eternal in itself was already overinflated because it was during COVID times. So everybody was home buying it and everything else like that. But Doom, the Dark Ages, had a much bigger team and a much bigger budget. And even though it launched on Game Pass, it was still on PlayStation 5 and it was still on Steam. And Game Pass is not on those, platforms. And it doesn't even look like it sold 2 million copies. Even though a bunch of people played it on Game Pass, and probably that's a good thing that it did what it was supposed to do for Game Pass. It still didn't sell well on other, platforms.
I'll caveat that a little bit. I mean, with the Dark Ages, there was a significant shift in the gameplay formula that a lot of people were not enthusiastic about. To be fair,
also there was also the controversy with Mick Gordon as well, that I think some players, say they might have passed the game up for. I don't know how tangible that is, but it did have its controversy and everything else too. But the point still stands. I wish these games journalists, because the games journalists always tell me, oh, everything's doom and gloom. Why are they destroying these studios? It was like, well, why isn't Jason Schreier coming out and making an article telling us, well, how big the budget was for Doom the Dark Ages? Did it get a return on investment? Was it profitable? I wish some of these people would do more than just go like, well, these devs need their rights. I'm like, okay, I agree with you, but at the same time, I think it comes from a sports, background here, where it's just like, look, you could be an all-star quarterback and you still can lose the Super Bowl. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. You still lose, and it doesn't matter like how many points you lose by. Sometimes you get blown out. Sometimes you lose by like a point. It happens.
I think it's worth noting that Jason Schreier did do a breakdown, and a couple of other people did, of the general reason for current game development costs, and it basically boils down to one: the salaries of these game developers are quite high.
Mm-hmm.
In general, that's what the industry is asking for, but there's also an issue of concentration in highly expensive cities.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's also the issue of games taking longer to develop, and then the number of people on the teams. And if you add up all of that and you do some very basic multiplication, it's like elementary algebra, like 8th grade stuff. Then you can very easily get to hundreds of millions of dollars in budget.
Right. I mean, we've talked about that too. Like, what makes AAA? Big budgets, big teams, grandiose ideas, kind of longer development time. But on top of that too, it's just like we kind of seen it before with how the industry used to be. AAA games used to take 3 years to make. Or they would have multiple different studios kind of handing the torch off, like you see with Call of Duty or Madden and so on and so forth like that. Well, Madden basically is just the same game, just updated rosters every year, it feels like.
Mm.
But, now, like, I think a reason why a lot of games took a longer time to do as well, they were transferring technologies, aging out employees, replacing them with new ones. Obviously, COVID, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. COVID, it played a part. And I know we are now post-COVID by 6 years now at this point. But at the same time, a lot of these companies went to remote work. They had to reestablish their, studios to work remotely, especially if you were from Microsoft or in, other countries that had more draconian lockdowns and stuff like that. A lot of these studios were built to be studios, not remote workhouses. So they had to relearn how to do everything remotely. And that probably reduced some stuff by that's added some stuff, by like a year or two as well. And, like you keep saying there, Grim, like a lot of the talent is based in like these really heavily populated cities with really high cost of living. And that doesn't help. And that's why you see so many of them outsourced to AI. They're outsourcing to studios in Singapore and Vietnam and Thailand and all these other places where the cost of living for the average American, if we had like our paycheck, we could live there, for, 10 years probably without a problem because it's so cheap to live there. But at the end of the day, the AAA competition space, as we kind of are saying too right now, is very cutthroat. And I think for me, I want to work with an establishing point. Big publishers and first parties, I would consider AAA. So let's go Steam, Nintendo, Xbox, or Microsoft, PlayStation, Sony, Capcom, Ubisoft, EA. Like those are like the working definitions of AAA games, and that's what I would say. And
Can I
go on?
I just want to add one more point before we move on about the impact of COVID. One thing that's maybe the most important impact of COVID actually is that during COVID times, there was what was seen as a boom in the video game market. And suddenly you had venture capitalists coming in, private investors, who saw, hey, this industry is really, really profitable. And now this was when the news first started to hit the mainstream, that the video game industry was larger than the film and music industries combined. And so all of this money came flooding in during COVID. But then COVID ended. And then as soon as COVID ended, or right around the time COVID ended, maybe give or take a year or two, that's when the AI stuff started coming to the scene. So COVID ended, the venture capitalists left because of COVID being gone, and the game sort of boom, sort of slowing down as people returned to work. And then AI came along, and the remaining venture capitalists were like, well, hell, let's go make money on data centers. And so with all of the money now out of games, the development budgets that they had originally set aside, the team sizes that they had planned around 6 years ago, are no longer viable, and that's why we have all these layoffs at all these big studios. This is the main reason is they overfunded during COVID. And then not only did COVID, like after COVID ended, did that overfunding come back to bite them, but then we had an unforeseen, like massive reinvestment of basically all of the venture capital in the world into data centers.
I would like to add on to that point a little bit too. They overinvested a lot, and it was also on top of that too. You saw companies just slowly start to shut down studios they just did not find worth it as well. I think this kind of plays into the competition part a lot too, because a lot of these companies that run, say, for example, Microsoft, PlayStation, and Nintendo for that matter, they used to invest in like the AA, single A, indie level type of games, you know? And I feel like we saw that a lot with Phil Spencer's plan with buying Double Fine, buying Compulsion, buying Ninja Theory. And basically saying like, okay, you guys can continue making the same level of game as you want, you know? And instead of them trying to grow to be AAA, he just said like, go and continue to be AA and don't really evolve or improve. And then you saw what happened with PlayStation, where they shut down a lot of their iconic AA to AAA studios like Pixel Opus, Japan Studio, so on and so forth like that. You know, that made some of the PlayStation 4 games, you know, like what's it called? Like Concrete Genie or Gravity Rush, Ico, Shadow of the Colossus, stuff like that. And I feel like we have seen a massive amount of layoffs, but we've also seen more and more people, like you said before, Grim, be able to access these technologies a lot easier, like Unreal, Unity, stuff like that. And even if they make the crappiest game that you can think of, it has some sort of audience, like people will stick around for it, you know? Among Us was one of those games that just was basically a flop until it just kind of caught lightning. And now it's become a revived, cultural hit. You see every day some new, I guess someone says like their friendship slop games that come out, like the climbing games, the stacking game. What's the one where you do the heist?
I don't even. There's so many now. I can't even keep track of them.
Yeah, it's just
Quite
like there's so many. Like I said, there's quite a few of them. You're like, which one are we talking about this week? The bottom of the pyramid is astronomically huge compared to what it used to be. You know, before that base of the indies, and all that stuff was, I would say, a lot more constrained. Now it's just astronomically huge that even if the AAA was matching that pace, it would probably destroy the industry first off, but it's just super truncated. Even if, say, for example, every studio produces a AAA game under PlayStation, Xbox, and Nintendo. Just every studio just produces a AAA game every year. You know, they still would be just eaten alive by just the fire ants of the indie scene. And it's just no shot against them. But that's why I think you saw so many of these studios get divested from, like Double Fine and so on, because they just aren't producing the ROI. And with all the stuff that happened during COVID and the inflated budgets and stuff like that, games like, let's say, Ninja Theory's Hellblade. I liked Hellblade. It sold about 5 million, 7 million copies, the first one. And instead of expanding upon that, it seems Ninja Theory just worked on the engine, created a more sophisticated walking simulator, and I don't even think it sold 1 million copies. And that's a drastic, step down. And that was prior to COVID too, a lot of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So they were basically given everything. They built up a new studio. They were given time to integrate and grow. And then it just feels like they were given a $100 million budget and they made negative $95 million in return. And that's why I think that's why you see them now. They were bought off by somebody else. And I will get on to like the AA scene after that, but you can see why some of these bigger companies are now just divesting from smaller projects and just focusing on what makes money because they have to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, they do. I mean, when it comes to these inflated budgets, for me, it's kind of to Grimm's point. The question is really just how sustainable is it? Because we're seeing or at least part of Grimm's point, we're seeing the layoffs, we're seeing investors leave, we're seeing that teams that were good 6 years ago that they thought they need 6 years ago are too large for current day standards. So there's a multitude of points we can look to that I think have been made, public in terms of reporting and things like that we could look to and say, oh, that's why the budget's too high. That's why it's another reason why that's here. So to me, the question is just how sustainable is it? How much longer can you continue to have these inflated budgets and produce games that, to Carl's point now, aren't selling copies the way that they were expected to and things like that? Like how you reconcile that difference in budget versus, what's coming back. You can't even call it profit because it sounds like in a lot of cases they're not turning a profit. But how you can reconcile the difference between budget and sales, if it's just not adding up like that, I don't know. And how long you can do it for clearly isn't very long because we're seeing layoffs left and right at this point, and of sizable amounts too. It's not like it's small layoffs we're talking about here. It's whole studios shutting down, being let go from Microsoft to hopefully find footing elsewhere. Like, again, it just doesn't seem like it's sustainable. It's already showing kind of cracks in the foundation. I would say massive ones at that. And it probably should have been expected. I think a point about the new investors that kind of came in during the past few years and kind of wanted to get their slice of what seemed like a massive pie that wasn't going anywhere, because I do believe you're correct, Grim, that gaming was a much larger medium than anything else in the world, even when you started to combine them, when you talk about movies, music, TV, all that kind of stuff.
I think it still is, to be honest.
I was going to say, I believe it still is. I don't know if I just spoke entirely in the past tense there, but I do believe that it still is. I don't think that's changed. But just the idea of, in a few years ago, when I think investors were realizing that and trying to make their way over into it, one of the things that I think got over invested into, because I think they thought it was a money printing idea, was, and to me, I've always looked at it as one of the kind of illnesses or ailments of gaming or the industry at the past few years in terms of what's being developed, is live service, the battle royale and live service thing. That was a disease for gaming. Fortnite pulled it off. PUBG pulled it off. A few others have done all right in their attempts to pull it off, but that
Especially
a lot of that
PlayStation, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Big time.
The whole
100%,
PS5 generation
100%.
sabotaged by that.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's not even just that. You saw that happening a lot with the Xbox One generation. Games like State of Decay 2, Sea of Thieves. Mm-hmm. Every Xbox game seemed to have multiplayer shoehorn into it. You can even say that started to go back into the 360 era, when games like Fable even had to have a multiplayer component.
Well, and that's the things, like I remember some games trying, like, again, trends get chased. Trends always get chased. So when the multiplayer really took off back in those days, I remember some games taking some creative attempts at trying to do a multiplayer. Like, I'll never forget, I swear by this to this day, Batman Origins multiplayer was fun. A lot of people hated it, thought it was awful, but it was fun to play. And whoever thought Batman games were going to have a multiplayer? Well, it was definitely them trying to jump on the bandwagon and get a multiplayer kind of long-term replayability side of the game for gamers. Was it perfect? No, it was, it had its faults and its issues, but it was a cool concept. It was interesting and it was fun. I really enjoyed it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I like that older generation of trying to cash in on multiplayer. I think we've all got our favorite
things for sure. And that I think was nice about it, at least.
Yeah, I liked BioShock 2 multiplayer. There's people who swear by the Uncharted multiplayer.
Assassin's Creed 4 had a pretty fun little multiplayer side to it as well, which I played a lot of. Honestly, a hell of a lot of back in the day. I really enjoyed that. And it's just something different. It wasn't your standard, as Carl said earlier, your sports games or your shooting games, your first person shooters, Call of Duty, or even your third person ones, whatever. They were at least creative attempts to you could say shoehorn for sure, but they were at least creative attempts to shoehorn a multiplayer side of a game because it was a big trend into those. What happened with the live service stuff, just one, it wasn't creative because like it all started with trying to get the next battle royale. Like it wasn't just let's do a live service. It was let's try to get the next Fortnite, the next battle royale. Battle royale is the big thing. It went from Call of Duty multiplayer to battle royale. Now I think we're starting to see a switch to extraction shooters being that big kind of commercial gaming style that's taking over a bit of the multiplayer
Friend
stuff.
slop too.
But it just, yeah, that too for sure. But with those failed, at this point we can call them failed, a lot of them at least. Battle royales, none of them really stuck. I think Call of Duty's done all right. Apex Legends has done all right, and it's
they have their natures. Yeah.
Just done okay, but how many have failed and been horrible? And then the switch, once I feel like they started to realize that the battle royale live service wasn't working, then it was, well, what else can we make live service? Then you get things like Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League, and these games that should have been focused on single player gaming experience, like things I point to that one just because I'm a big fan of the Arkham games, but two, I think it's a one of the worst cases of trying to shoehorn that trend that I think has just ruined the minds of the heads of these studios, the big investors at least, rather not so much anything with the developers all that much, but ruin them to think everything has to be live service. We got to make everything into a live service game to keep that money train coming on in. And it's like, man, how much money did you guys lose trying to chase that?
I think it's also we can't just focus on just live service, because I do think it all
that was just one kind of ailment that I think was something from those that big jump to investing. Well, and I always think is worth highlighting just because I thought it was just such a misguided step for a lot of these studios.
But I think it all starts when you go back to microtransactions and multiplayer.
Yeah,
things.
that absolutely.
I feel like before
and free to play.
Yeah, before we even just like talk about, say for example, just these massive online like live service games and stuff like that. MMOs have always been around. They've always tried to capitalize in some way, shape, or form. Do you guys remember MAG?
Sounds familiar.
I do not.
The PS3 game MAG, I think it was like Massive Armament Gun Game or something like that. I think that was the acronym. It was a PS3 game where they tried to do like the very first like giant 64 person fights and all that stuff. I got
maybe for console. Yeah, you had that in Battlefield 2 back in the day on PC, but
I'm trying to remember.
That game sounds familiar. It's like a modern military shooter with
tanks and stuff. So MAG stands for Massive Action Game, is a discontinued 256 player online multiplayer first person shooter developed by Zipper Interactive, now defunct, and was originally a PlayStation first party game. But that was basically what it was. It was basically a 128 versus 128 kind of multiplayer game for the PS3. That was Sony actually first party invested in. That failed. And then on top of that too, like you said, Battlefield, what was the futuristic one that was only on PC?
2042?
Yeah.
I think.
It was one of those ones where I think that one was massively smaller though, right?
Are you talking about a more recent game?
No, this was the early 2000s.
Oh, I don't remember all. I don't think it would have been Bad Company. Those are older games.
No, this was it was only
Battlefield 2 was a very large, like they had large scale battles. That was one of the first like sort of breakout games in the series.
And it's not 20.
It's very popular.
It's not 42. It was one of those other ones. They had like mechs and everything too. 2149. Yeah, I think that's it now. Let me see right now. No. Maybe it's 2140. It was an older Battlefield game, but I remember it had like a giant feel for that too. Go on, you were going to say something?
2042 is a more recent one.
Yeah, that's too recent. This one was something like that though.
Yeah.
But it does feel like they've been trying to, like I said, keep chasing these trends of trying to put a multiplayer in there to keep players engaged longer, to try to milk them out well before, say, for example, the live service model, the freemium editions and everything too. But that goes back into the whole competition thing that we were just talking about. The barrier to entry to a lot of these games, is $0. And it's really hard to basically fight against, do I spend $70 on a full price game, or do I go and just play Fortnite, which I find very fun, and I can spend maybe $5 a month if I really want a new skin or something,
Now, do you mind if I take this in another direction? It was staying on competition, but
Sure.
um, so far we've talked about a lot of the issues surrounding competition. But I wanted to point out that there are some strides being made in the industry to sort of combat some of these issues in ways that are new and creative. And the biggest area that I really want to focus in on is discoverability.
Ooh, good one, Grim.
Because
That's actually good.
because discoverability makes a huge difference in cutting back some of this competition. Part of the discoverability battle is simply getting a game in front of players' eyes, and for a lot of regular like casual gamers, that's going to mean being on social media. And you've seen a lot of change in the way that games are advertised in recent years. A lot of advertising happens through now streamers rather than directly through like ads or video ads or something.
Mm-hmm.
But then you've got like recently, last week or week before, Steam rolled out a new update to the Steam storefront, where you can now have multiple wish lists that you can separate by different genres. You can hide or show your wish lists to your friends. You can organize them and do all that. And then a few weeks or months before that, they rolled out a new feature for for upcoming releases calendar. So if you go on the Steam store page, you just scroll down a little bit, it'll pop up. Here's the calendar of all the games coming out this week and all the way out for 2 months, and it shows you every major game that might be of interest to you based on games you've played before. And Steam is really far ahead of the competition in this regard. PlayStation and Xbox especially are really lacking in discoverability. Other PC storefronts, not so much Epic, but like GOG, are doing a better job as well. Nintendo, surprisingly, is not as bad at discoverability, maybe because they have so many indie games, they have to sort of focus on discoverability more. But I just wanted to sort of open up that sort of point of conversation.
I would like to say that's a good point there, Grim, but I think another thing too is I don't know how many people actually do the curation, I guess you say, of their Steam store like stuff. You know what I mean? Because another problem too is just how these storefronts handle all the massive amounts of shovelware that kind of just pile up on their thing. I would say back when I used to listen to some podcasts, they would go through like video games coming out every week, and there's just be like this insanely long list of games that nobody's going to play. And this was almost 10 years ago at this point, 2018, 2019. So we're getting closer to 10 years now. But even then, the problem has just become so out of control that I think Microsoft is probably, kind of not like what you said, Grim, but with Game Pass offering people a concise, here's what's coming to Game Pass for you to kind of check out list has helped, I think, with
That's
some
true.
people,
The subscriptions are great for discoverability.
Yeah, and even still, like if you have PlayStation Plus, you can download all those games and basically have that just entire library still. That even if you choose not to play those games, if you reactivate your subscription later at another date, then you basically got that whole library back again too. And stuff is just getting buried. It's just like constantly getting buried. You're kind of forgetting. Like we just got news recently now that Lao Fei is coming out a day before Fable. One of those games is obviously going up against competition on the PlayStation 5. All the other ones just going to be on the Xbox only. And you're going to see like, well, which game is going to lose out? Which game is going to take the hit? And we've seen this many a times where it's just sometimes a company will own goal itself and destroy its game with just putting it against itself. And I kind of keep bringing this back up. That example was like Battlefield 1 and Titanfall 2. probably one of the worst release schedules EA could ever do for a game, because they put it right in between Call of Duty as well. So it was like Call of Duty, Titanfall, and then Battlefield. It's just like, what did you expect was going to happen? One of them was going to die,
I do want to point out that at least on the Xbox end, this could be true on PlayStation's end as well. We just don't know it because they never communicate anything. But Xbox has recently mentioned that they're trying to do a better job of putting their games out at a time where they're not going to be facing such fierce competition. They set the date for Fable first, and then PlayStation set the date for Laufey. So, I mean, that's not necessarily on Xbox for putting that date for Fable. And Fable wasn't originally supposed to be there anyway.
Your point's valid, but it's competition regardless. It doesn't matter.
Sure.
Like, let's look at what's coming out next month in September. Well, technically it's still July.
Well, yeah, everybody avoiding Grand Theft Auto September and October. Crazy.
Yeah, I guess my point here is just that I feel like publishers are becoming more aware of the need to space out releases, and your point about GTA actually sort of strengthens that point, if anything.
But how weren't they already aware of that? Like, how could they have thought at any point, releasing, especially when, like Carl said, or a point Carl made there, which is like, again, 2 Xbox games coming out and they put them out against each other in horrible timing to essentially sync one or the other. Like, how do you not see that as these big companies? How do you not have the foresight to see that happening? Is what I think is always blown my mind with the whole concept. Like,
certainly incompetence.
You've seen other movies, TV shows, other mediums. They always release things as much as they can away from another to just fight off some of the competition from other companies or other products. Never mind doing it to your own company with your own 2 products. Like, that's the thing, is like, how did you not have the business acumen to know that you shouldn't do that? That just blows my mind.
Yeah, Grim, you had a point you were trying to say.
I was just pointing out that was, first off, a different time, different leadership. That was also a transitionary period where Phil Spencer came in to take over for what was his name? The TV guy. Anyway, like that was sort of a change of the leadership. They probably weren't on top of those things like they should have been. Not to justify or
no,
to,
I get it. Right. Just kind of explaining how it likely went down. And I get it. Like, if that's the case, so be it. But still, it's just like, it's like you said, it's like not on top of it as much as they should have been.
Well,
like, how did you not know to be on top of that? I guess it's just something I can never understand.
Well, here's what I'm going to say. You can have 2 big video games released right next to each other if they're not in the same genre.
We had,
sure.
Was it
Doom? A way to do it.
Doom Eternal and Animal Crossing New Horizon, was it?
And then another one too was
it's like your Barbenheimer moment.
Yeah, but another one too was Forza Horizon 5 and Halo Infinite. They basically released a week or 2 apart, and it makes sense because it's like you don't know
see much overlap.
Yeah, it's like one's a shooter, one's a racer. Right? That I think those have 2 very distinct audiences that will play it a lot more. But when I was talking about the other one, you had Call of Duty, Battlefield, and Titanfall. They're all shooters,
right?
And and EA owned 2 of them. Sorry to cut you off, Jay.
No, that's exactly what I was going to say. Those exact words, and I was going to, like, EA literally had 2 of them. So, like, what the hell were you thinking there?
Yeah, it feels like you could have pushed off Titanfall to give it a better chance, because Battlefield and Call of Duty, I think those 2 can go against each other because I think they have well-established player bases that could survive that type of head-to-head competition. But Titanfall, we're talking about, this originally was an Xbox 360 exclusive and Xbox One exclusive, only that they are finally transitioning over to be multi-platform and trying to expose to a new audience with the PlayStation and PC crowd, and they just completely put it out there to basically die. It was the Russians defending Stalingrad, and that's what it was, right?
And there was just no need to, like you said, like, why not push out a couple months later when everybody's kind of like, well, because at least I feel like for me, what happens with every new call, I've actually sworn off Call of Duty because it's been, the last one was god awful, and I'm just tired of paying the price every year for just a kind of rinse and repeat thing. It's just like I said, I've skipped out on the last couple, and I plan on continuing to skip out.
Yeah.
But I was somebody who was a yearly Call of Duty buyer. And for me, it was like this wave of like, I can play this game for about 2 months and then I'm sick of it and I probably don't touch it again until the next Call of Duty comes out.
Yeah.
So it's like, why not just push it 2-3 months out and wait for that, at least that wave of, because again, there are people who play it year round. It's the people who only play, like they play 3 games and that's one of them. And that's fine. I'm not picking on them. I'm just pointing out that that's the audience.
Yeah.
But like, so like they'll be there year round, but like, why not maybe try to fight for the attention of those 2-month wave people? Because I was one of them. And after 2 months and I was sick of Call of Duty, I would have loved to have had a fresh flavor of something to go, to go have. And Titanfall could have been that, but you kind of just buried it in the worst spot possible.
I feel like another thing too, and Grim and Jay, I want to know your opinions about this, but it does feel like some developers are getting wise to releasing in the quote unquote dead period a lot more of the Januaries and the Februaries. I think Capcom has shown that.
Sega, for sure.
Sega and Capcom, for sure. The Japanese companies are for sure the ones that like, well, okay, we're going to release Resident Evil in February. We're going to release, Persona in March and stuff like that. Like we're going to fill those voids, and they're going to go after those markets. And a lot of the bigger competitions now are kind of, I think they're kind of skirting away from just releasing in November and stuff like that. And they're starting to release more throughout the year to try to get a longer tail as well.
Yeah, people have disposable income throughout the year and not just during holidays. And I think that might be a generational change where in the past people didn't have as much disposable income, and so they would spend their money primarily at the holiday period. They would save up, and it would be sort of a gift giving sort of thing. That's how the games were sold.
Yeah.
I just want to also point out, like Final Fantasy 14 Evercold and Final Fantasy 7 Revelation, January and February back to back. So you're definitely right about that sort of early start of the year period opening up.
Yeah, and I think Neo brought it up earlier too. I kind of wanted to touch on this as well. Let me scroll up a little bit here.
Oh yeah, while you look for that, I just wanted to shout out, Neo, Don Matrick was who I was talking about earlier. The TV guy.
Matrick. But he says over here, but we definitely need more AA games. And I want to talk about this too, because I think we have a lot of AA games, and I don't think people recognize it, because I do think we have a very large secondary publishing tier of people who make AA games. Focus Home, Embracer Group, and all of them. Saber definitely is another good example of that. I think the AA industry is incredibly healthy right now. I don't necessarily think we need more. I think it's
actually a discoverability issue, right?
I would say a little bit so, but I feel like one of the prime examples of like a really good AA game is A Plague's Tale.
Yeah,
that game is just constantly evolving and just showing you what a studio like Asobo can do with a very linear, very tight budget. Innocence was a great game. Requiem might be a top 5 game of all time for me.
It's like Expedition 33 also. And you could argue all of the Atlas games, the Persona games, Metaphor, the Shin Megami Tensei.
The Yakuza
those are all
series.
AA. Yakuza, those are all AA.
Yeah, and you kind of like seen a giant resurgence of people getting into them. And, a lot of people, I think if you're a hardcore like us and if you're not a weeb, I think a lot of people are starting to find out about these games, but they're still not breaking the bank in terms of sales, I think, the entire Persona series kind of basically sold from Persona 5 mostly. I think it was like Persona 5 is like 5 to 7 million units sold, if I recall correctly.
I think it's a lot more than that now. It's I want to say up there in like 20 million range somewhere.
But like I'm also talking about just like most of that is Persona 5.
Oh yeah, the majority of it is. I think it was something like a quarter is everything that's not Persona 5 or Persona 5 spinoffs. Yeah,
because these franchises were niche. Like I think I was looking up old sales data for Persona 3, and it's like 500,000 copies or something like that, big enough for people to know about it. If you know, you know, but not like these over the top, super expensive games. And they're very linear. They're kind of cheaper on a budget, but they still found a dedicated, fan base. And now they've kind of explode more into mainstream, but it hasn't overly exploded into mainstream. We're talking maybe like 2 million copies, I think Persona 3 Reloaded sold, which is great, but it's not, Grand Theft Auto 50 million. It's not Minecraft 100 million or something like that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It was announced 2 months ago that the Persona franchise sales have passed 30 million. And back in March 2022, it was only at 15 and a half.
Oh,
So
wow.
apparently there's been a big resurgence and or a big growth in popularity, maybe with the Switch releases of Persona 5 and Persona 3.
I would love to know a breakdown of how many people bought multiple entries of that game too,
Oh, I think I bought Persona 5 4 or 5 times.
I know I did. I bought it for the Switch, the Xbox, the PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, and the original launch on PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 3. So I bought Persona 5 6 damn times, okay?
I know I have at least 2 collector's editions sitting around here.
Oh, I have 2 collector's editions too. Look at us. Wow, way to call us losers.
I've never even played the game, so I couldn't be more opposite.
You want a copy of it? I'll ship it to
you. Can I get 3?
Yeah, sure. If you want to test it out. I demand a Digital Foundry level video where you can compare flip rates.
Yeah, that's funny.
But no, I thank you for pointing out, Graham. I was way wrong there. 30 million, crazy.
But I mean, the point stands, and I think maybe the point is, or to drive a slightly different point, if you look at the success of Persona, you look at the success of Yakuza, you look at the success of Expedition 33. That's a one-off, but it's another example of a small team. You look at the success of A Plague Tale. These small teams putting out these games that sell like a AAA game does, but for like a fraction of the budget. Smaller teams and cheaper work or salaries.
A lot of them are French, ironically enough.
Well, yeah, for both Plague Tale and Expedition.
Yeah.
French, Japanese. You've got a lot of companies out of Korea that are AA. Saber, I think, is based in Eastern Europe.
Yeah, they are.
So yeah, you've got a lot of these countries with lower wages, and they can, because they have lower cost of living, they can produce more with less money.
Yeah, you're not wrong about that too. But another thing too, as well, in the case of Expedition 33 as well, we're starting to see a lot of these former devs that worked at big AAA games go out and make their own smaller game companies and use those industry connections to also kind of help get their games out there as well. Because I do know when we were talking about Expedition 33, originally it looked like, oh, it's just a random indie game. And then we kind of learned more. It's like, well, no, these guys are actually just devs who worked at Ubisoft. They formed their own studio. They know how to make a game. And then they went out and they just made a game by finding the right people, like the SoundCloud technicians and so on and so forth, to make the music and everything else. They did everything right. They did what you should do if you have connections in the industry. Find budget, find marketing, find a way to get your game in front of people. And Microsoft really advertised that game too. We can't forget about that. It was a main staple for the 2024 Xbox showcase. It was the midpoint of that show. They showed off Expedition 33. And then before it came out, they had a special developer direct, and they devoted a lot of time to showing off that game too. They showed you the studio and they got you excited for it. And, the game was a runaway smash hit. I got the collector's edition for it. I bought it on Xbox and PlayStation. It hit a lot of chords with people. And like I said, that's a AA game. And I think even with other games too that might not be as successful. Hell is Us, another good AA game. The RoboCop game, a really good licensed game that a lot of people loved. And not so much the new DLC, but that's neither here nor there. But you are finding people kind of just working their way into the AA scene, and these could be the studios that eventually go and become AAA if you give them enough time, you know?
Yeah.
And to kind of close out one more about this point too, we haven't really talked about the indie space so much, but there's been a recent shift to just basically get indie games recognition for Game of the Year contenders or special, shout outs to them. Balatro, Celeste are a couple examples of, off the top of my mind, of recent, real, true indie games. Very small budgets, very small teams. We can even talk about Hollow Knight and Shovel Knight and Silksong too, as well as Hades.
Mugenics this year.
Mugenics, that's another good one. I forgot Mugenics existed, man. This year's been so stacked.
One of the highest rated games of the year, and it's like one person, I think.
Yeah, but even like Balatro a couple years ago, that was made by one dude in Canada, and it's a very simple game out there, and we're seeing a lot of experimental titles that kind of keep getting pushed out more and more, like Slay the Princess, 1000 X Resist, and everything else like that. There is a way for people who may not be exactly the biggest game developers that are just trying to work their way into the industry. Like 1000 X Resist was made by former Vancouver musicians, and they were just locked in during COVID, and they came up with a story and wanted to make a game of it. So
I see Ando mentioned Pizza Tower. Those Wario style games coming back was a big shock.
Oh yeah, that's right, Pizza Tower. And you see secondary markets like Limited Run Games, Fangirl Games, and there's like I Am 8-Bit. Push these games out there. Devolver Digital, I can't forget about that. Like Cult of the Lamb, Trek to Yomi. There's a girth of just like amazing indie games out there for you to play and experience. That like we said, we're fighting for attention. A $10 game, a $20 game, can really just take away a lot of your time and effort. Like I've played Cult of the Lamb for like a month straight. That game was not expensive, but I love that game. I think it's an amazing game. But now you see it's kind of getting secondary successes and constant reprints and now collector's editions and stuff like that. You're seeing some of these smaller indie games just blow up and develop, no pun intended here, a cult following that's growing beyond what they even probably the devs themselves say,
Well, look at that game. Schedule 1 was one that I really liked. I enjoyed that game quite a bit. God, I've actually played a good chunk of that when it was big. There was also some of those simulator games like TCG Card Shop Simulator that I played a bit of, like silly little things that, the gameplay loop is fairly repetitive, but it's still fun to just, build your little empire in Schedule 1 like you're Tony Montana, or run a card shop like you're somewhere in the Pokemon world of YouTubers who run their card shops. Like that was a really fun, silly little game, but had a blast playing it. So it's, I think one thing too with competition, even amongst all these levels, AAA, AA, indie, competition of pricing is something that I think takes a huge effect on a lot of this, and why I think indie games have been kind of kicking ass lately is that like the price of them is really inexpensive for most. Maybe it's not for everybody, so I don't mean to say that disrespectfully, but when you're talking about $5-10 games, $8.99, stuff like that, like people don't really mind just taking a whack and seeing if it's a good game that you like or not, and like not making a huge deal about it if it's not. You spend $15 on a game and it sucks. It's like, all right, whatever. Maybe I played it too long where I can't return it, so I'm kind of stuck with it now.
Yeah.
At least if you're buying it digitally, I'm kind of just thinking PC at the moment, because I just feel like there's so many more indie games available on PC. It's whatever versus you spend even in the AA pricing, even $30 to $40 up to $60, $70, $80. Like when you buy a game like that and it sucks, it just kind of hurts. So you're a little bit in terms of kind of discovery and exposure. I think indie has a little bit of a leg up where like sometimes you can just sift through what's in that market and just kind of pick some stuff out and try it and not really feel like it's breaking the wallet if it sucks or anything like that. More so than you're willing to do that with more expensive games. So that, at least for me, and maybe that's, again, because we're kind of gamers here, I think maybe we're into it than the more casual average gamer. For me, I find myself kind of combing, that price range in that market a lot more than I do some of the higher ones, just because I feel like I could find a little hidden gem in there that I can get a lot of use out of for $10-15. And like, why not?
Yeah, I'm the same way. I mostly play indies. I've got over 1,000 games on Steam, and almost none of them are AAA. Like, it's just they don't. I'm not interested in buying a game at $70-$80. It doesn't matter what it is. I know we're going to move to this topic here in a second.
Yeah, I think it'll be a good transition.
Yeah, why not, right? It's a good segue.
Yeah. I just want to throw one last thing about competition out there as well. And you mentioned these indie games and their low prices and that sort of low barrier to entry. But another thing that is prevalent in all games, but much more so in indie games, they've got better support for demos. Like you can't get a lower barrier of entry than free, right? So I just wanted to throw that out there too.
Well, I feel like going over to pricing a little bit here too. Sometimes you'll buy an indie game and it's exactly what you think you're going to get out of it for a price. I like playing indie games just as much as I like playing the big, showstoppers, as they would say. But I'm playing a game right now, like The Late Shift, I think it's called. It just came to Game Pass. It's only $10, and, like regular price. So I bought it because I like those. Full disclosure, I fall asleep listening to basically AI-generated creepypastas just because some of them are good and some of them I'm going like, what are they talking about here? And that's basically what this game is. You run a store at night. You scan the IDs. You check to see if they're like doppelgangers or something like that.
Oh, yes. Okay, I've seen this.
Yeah, I like it. I think it's fine. But super linear. There's not really too much deep detail into it. But I think it's just like, it's fun. It's only $10, like you're saying. But versus like, say, for example, let's go with a recent release, the Halo release. When I first played it, buggy as hell, the first mission, stuff is not working right and everything else. So it's like, well, I just paid, in my case, let's just say I paid the, $20 extra to get the early access to play through Game Pass. And it's just like, well, even if I paid only just $20 for this, it still does not work properly. And it's unacceptable why this doesn't work. Versus like if there's because I've had some glitches with the Late Shift as well from what I've been playing. I'm like, well, it's a $10 game,
Yeah, you can accept it from that.
And then Shock says here that's definitely true with older games too. They go on sale and used market is cheaper, so you give older games you never play a chance. That's what I mean about the competition. I said it before, with so much backwards compatibility. Now you're basically having the entire Xbox One generation go up against the Xbox Series generation. The PS4 generation is also going up against the PS5 generation concurrently, which even though some things had basically a lot of like some like the PlayStation and the PlayStation 3 and the Xbox 360 and all that, they had some backwards compatibility. It wasn't as easy to have that competition now because you would have to go to the store and buy those games versus now the whole entire digital market's at your fingertips. But that brings us over now to the other point here, pricing. And this was my second point over here. So my original thoughts for this, as I write down, I said price. Game prices and sales aren't happening at the clip they used to. The average price of a game has gone up roughly $10, and we aren't seeing the $20 greatest hits values like before. Physical media dying has pushed into the retro market and driven up prices. Sony's recent decision to close the PS3/Vita store has also shocked the used games market. While not everything is inflated, it hasn't helped overall. Basically, to expound on that point more, because I didn't really go into the detail, a lot of newer games we haven't seen get that crazy discount like they used to. When God of War came out in April of 2018, it went on sale for $20 by the end of the year. Now we see God of War Ragnarok, and God of War Ragnarok has been out for, I think, 3 or 4 years now almost, and we still haven't really seen it hit a $20 sale. I think we still see it hovering around $40 to even $50. And even though it's on Steam, we don't really even see it go that low on Steam. I think the lowest I saw from just Steam proper and not like a reseller market, I think it was only like $40 as well.
Yeah, 40 is the lowest it's gone. I've been tracking that one, waiting for it to go on a good sale.
So I do feel like that has been playing into a lot of issues this generation. Obviously, I didn't mention this too, but the cost of all the parts and consoles and everything have been going up. Memory, RAM, it's been outrageous. There's no reason why a PlayStation 5 Pro should cost $1,000. just no reason at all.
It's only going to go up.
I know. I bought a PlayStation 5 Pro for $500 used with a disc drive, and that looks like an investment that just keeps winning for old Adam here. It's just I'm just like, oh my God, I can't believe I fleeced this guy. If only he knew, he'd be so mad right now.
You're sitting on a gold mine.
Yeah, exactly. But on top of that too, like I said, I'm more of a retro collector, so I wish AC was here for this part to kind of add to it. And we're seeing the Xbox 360 store close. We saw the Wii, the DS store close. And we're seeing now PlayStation going back and finally saying enough is enough. The PlayStation 3 and Vita store has already kicked in. And the secondary market has seen a massive rise in prices. Folklore is a $20 game on the PlayStation 3 store. And now if you want it physically, it's $150.
Wow.
So that's just one example. And I'm working on a video about that. Like I said last night, my wife is my editor, so I can't overload her. As I like to describe her, did you guys ever watch Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends?
Yeah, love that show.
So my wife is. I call my wife the Scribble, the like little baby imaginary friends.
Oh yeah, the room full of scribbles.
Yeah, so I can only give her one task at a time, otherwise she freaks out. Just
That's a good one.
So basically, I've been going through a lot of these stores right now, and I'm looking at prices. A game might cost $5.99 or $4.99 on the PlayStation 3 store. The physical counterparts to some of those games can be upwards of $500, $600 to $700 physically, and it's insane. When we talk about game preservation, game access, and stuff like that too. Even if like we argue about, well, digital ownership isn't real ownership, and I go, yes, I agree, but I also believe that when the power goes out, you don't own anything at all.
Yeah,
that's just
won't be playing much of anything at that point.
But I digress. But we're losing the ability for people to still go out there and buy these games very cheap, and we're also losing the physical side, where you see some of these games get better deals because they're just trying to clearance them out and get them out. That's where you can still get some of those games if you're lucky for $20.
So you've introduced a lot here, so I wanted to step into this topic, and there's a lot to discuss here. I want to start off by addressing what you said about God of War, and I just want to start this off with saying that not all publishers are the same. Nintendo is pretty infamously maybe the worst, in that they almost never put their first-party games on sale. In fact, with the Switch 2, they raised the price. Like, if you want to get Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom, it's more expensive now than it was before. There's some publishers are worse than others, and I would say Sony is or PlayStation rather, is on the worst side as far as publishers and doing sales for their games. Rockstar is up there, maybe worse than PlayStation, but not as bad as Nintendo as far as sales. But
I
then
feel
you
like I've
have
gotten some good sales, a few good sales from Rockstar. At least.
Well,
I
here,
mean,
well,
a
I
game.
mean,
Sometimes it's Grand Theft Auto
decades
5.
later.
That's been out for 13 years. So fair
Yeah,
enough.
yeah, yeah. So
well, here,
I get
here.
the
Yeah,
broader
finish your
point
point.
is that
Finish your point. Finish your point. Sorry.
the broader point is that there's some publishers
Mhm.
that are better about sales than others. You've got Capcom, you've got Square Enix, who
Mhm.
will regularly do sales. Sega regularly do sales for games they released earlier in the year for 40-50% off.
Mhm.
You had Expedition 33 available within a year of launch for 50% off or more. So, I mean, and again, the Saber, Devolver, like the AA and AAA, or AA and Indies will put their games on deep sales. You don't see sales as much with the big AAAs, and that's largely because they're trying to make back perhaps their overinflated budgets.
Mhm.
Uh, so sales depends. Digital sales depends a lot on who we're talking about.
Well, first of all, I think that's a great assessment. I do agree with that overall in terms of just some are better than others with it. And number two, I think you hit the nail on the head with why AAA games seem to, even when they go on sale, to Carl's point, it's not the type of sales we see for everything else, where they're kind of still stuck at this $40 to $50 range that they will not go below. And I do think your point of it being they got to make money back on these budgets has to be at least a large portion of what's behind it. Again, I'm sure it's multi-layered and there's many factors to it, but that has to be one of the reasons you just don't see, even years later, you just don't see those games dip much lower than those sale points, because there's still money that they want to make back, or maybe milk out of the game if it's a good, if it is a God of War, something like that. But I would venture to guess that it has to do with making money back.
I do agree with you on that to a certain extent, but I think it's also coming back to like what you said, Graham. A lot of these games are also older as well.
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of Square games and a lot of Capcom games. Generally, you see them go on sale quite low because they're also PS4 games that got a PS5 port or something like that too. But even then, we're seeing games like, say, for example, Octopath Traveler are getting Switch 2 versions, and then the price is going right back up again for those. And it's a game key card, and we're just having a bunch of sales that aren't really sales. It's more so like you could buy the inferior version now that we just dangled out the better version to you.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you're right about that, because I know right now you can probably get, if I remember correctly, Resident Evil 2 remake, Resident Evil 3 remake, Resident Evil 4 remake, and Resident Evil 7 or 8. Um,
Let's be clear: 4 remake is not an old game.
Yeah, but they also have another sneaky edition that they like to throw out there too, with the gold edition, versus you could get the non-gold
That's
edition.
true. It's true. A lot of AAA devs do that, where they'll put it on sale, but then you go to look at the sale, and then you're like, oh, the gold edition is $70, the normal game price, now that it's on sale. And it's like, I see what they're trying to do. But I mean, if you're a savvy gamer, you look at that gold edition and you realize it's like skins for your shotgun that you're never going to use. You'll be fine.
Or it includes the DLC with it. That's another.
It depends on the game. So, some games, a Ubisoft game it's a skin for your shotgun or something like that. You shouldn't really care about unless the FOMO is strong.
Listen, you leave me alone. I want my Spartan to look like a Roman soldier. All right. Welcome, Mr. Angry Canadian. How you doing, buddy?
Oh, doing good. It's hot. It's a scorcher today, so I just got back from running errands and I'm already sweating. So hopefully I'm gonna have to take like a second shower now.
I feel your pain. I'm currently locked in my computer room and I feel like I'm in a sauna. But yeah, so Mr. AC, would you like to jump in on this topic of pricing going on here, since you kind of have a different experience from where you live?
Like what in particular? So I guess for me, I guess like people complain about the pricing, right? Like $80 games, $70 games and stuff. That doesn't really affect me because for those of you who don't know, I live in Japan and I still get paid in USD. So the conversion is like crazy for me. So like right now, 168 yen is like $1. Or excuse me, $1 is 168 yen. So when I go to buy a $60 game, it's actually like $50 for me. Like I'm getting like a massive like conversion cut, and so I don't, I'm not like as angered, I guess you can say, about like expensive games. But I can understand why, especially if you're living off the American economy or even the Canadian economy, how awful it is to spend 70, $80 on a game, like one game. But who says you need to buy 30 games a year? You got to be able to budget out, right? And buy like a couple games and look for those sales for other games, or you know, you don't need to go out and just spend, buy 30 games at one time throughout the
Well,
year.
well, to also kind of add to what you're saying about where you live in Japan, we've even talked about this when we were getting your Switch 2, that Japan actually has cheaper options out there to try to offset some costs with just region locked consoles.
Yeah, originally when the Switch 2 came out, the Japanese model was like significantly cheaper than the international model, which was really interesting that they did that. And they also, or and then I think it was either this year or maybe towards the end of last year, PlayStation did the same thing where they pumped out. Actually, it was last year because I was in the U.S. visiting when they started releasing it. It was like a Japanese only PS5, digital of course, and it was much cheaper than the base PS5. So that was like a really interesting way for them to, like, it's, I think it was for them to curtail the scalpers as well, but
Mm.
definitely for like their own population to get like a little bit of a cut from or a break from how expensive consoles have gotten.
Well, on top of that too, they did. I think Japan was one of the first real Western kind of first world countries that kind of got a big price hike as well too, if I recall correctly, right?
Yeah, for the PS5 originally. Yeah, I remember that. Like the PS5 went up. I want to say it was like 2 years ago now, and then the last year when it went up again, that's when I jumped in. I was like, okay, I got to get a PS5 Pro now before it gets out of hand.
Yeah. How
And
much did
then
you pay for yours? Sorry, I want to cut you off there.
Well, mine I found a good deal because I got it used. It came with two controllers and the disk drive and all of that. So I paid in Japanese money, or excuse me, in American money. I think it was about $800 because of the heavy currency conversion. Which, because I was texting you about, it and you're like,
Hmm.
that's a steal for like two controllers, the disk drive, and everything else.
Yeah.
And I was very fortunate to get that, and that was like, I think it was a couple months before either the second price hike or the third price hike for the PlayStation 5s.
Yeah, and also Shock actually has a question. Is it true they don't really do aggressive or big sales in Japan?
Yeah, I would say like at your normal retailers, like there, it's not like back in the day when Nintendo had the Nintendo Selects, like the $20 games or whatever.
Hmm.
Like really, games go on steep sales in the used market, and when you go to like the secondhand shops, then you see games like I'm thinking of Switch games right now, like they were $60 when they came out, but they were like slashed to $30 used, and that's like crazy to see that. But that's brand new games, no. Actually, no, because now that I think about it, Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater, the remake, when it came out, it was 7,000 yen, so like $60, I think. And then recently I've seen it brand new for about 4,000 yen, which would be like about $30. So I guess like over time they'll do a big cut, but they don't do like regular sales like what I think he's trying to refer to, where it's
Mm.
like around this time you'll see like a massive cut in games, and then they'll bring the price back up. Usually,
So,
if they cut a price, they'll keep it at that price for however long they sell it.
so Japan does not like have Golden Week sales like they do over here for us.
Not for video games, no. Probably for like a lot of other stuff, but I don't really, like I said, in the used market, they will do like campaigns here and there, or they do everything's like a point system out here. Like
Mm.
everything has like a point system. So yeah, if you spend like X amount of money, you could probably get like double points and stuff. But no, I don't. I don't look at a lot of like I probably should, but I don't look at a lot of gaming advertisements like from the like major electronic stores, so I don't see these sales and whatnot. But like Golden Week sales, but I I do go out and about and I don't see them advertised. So if they are advertising them, they're not really doing a good job of it.
Maybe for a future thing, just maybe check on that a little bit more for future content. I'm curious about this now.
Yeah.
But yeah, did anyone else want to add into the price thing real quick here?
Yeah.
All right, go ahead. I gotta hit the head real quick.
I was somebody else to speak up as well.
No, you can go ahead first, Graham. No big deal.
Okay. I just wanted to throw out another thing because we talk about the prices in Japan. I just wanted to point out that for many years, decades now, the price of games in Australia, Brazil, and a number of Eastern European countries have been significantly higher than what the rest of the world pays. And yet there is a thriving games industry in these nations. They just take on a different form. And so I think with all of the scare around game prices going up, I don't want to justify the prices going up. That's not what I'm doing. I don't like paying a lot of money for games in general. But I just want to point out that the game industry will not die or crash as a result of prices going up. It'll just take on a slightly different form. I also want to refer back to a quote from Gabe Newell. It's a classic quote. If you've not heard it before, I recommend you look up the video. But Gabe Newell was asked in an interview about game piracy. And he is famous for noting that game piracy on Steam is a service problem. It means that the publisher or the storefront is not providing a good enough service if the games are getting pirated. And in these sort of Brazil, Australia, Russia, I'll mention, in these sort of places where games are not readily available or are very expensive, for a long time, there was a large piracy scene. CD Projekt, actually, in Poland, got their start by basically making unofficial resale copies of games that were not available in Polish. They would re-record and re-release games in Polish. So, again, when we talk about game pricing being a major issue, the market will respond. The market will respond in a way that will allow gamers to continue to buy games, even if the corporations get like way out of line. I don't think we need to worry about games becoming completely inaccessible. There will be a way to get the games we want to play.
Mm-hmm. I do agree with you on that. Eventually they'll find the way to get that. I do think, though, even if we take away like emulation or piracy, whatever you want to call it, it's not going to be for everyone. I think people still would like to have something, even if it's just a digital license, to say like, well, I own this in some way, shape, or form, you know? Mm-hmm. And sure. I think there's just a lot of people, I would say kind of like us. If we like something, we just want to buy it and we want to share it with people, you know, through like just buying it on a Steam sale, or for like an example for me, I really like Pragmata. I bought the game 3 times. I've now given away 2 of the 3 copies I own. You know, because I like, well, if somebody else is not as fortunate as me to go play this game that I truly do believe in, you know, I will ship it out to somebody. I'll trade it with one of my buddies that we game collect with and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Because I do think you still want to see these devs kind of get, you know, I would say they're due a little bit, because they did put all this time and effort into making something that you enjoy. And I still want to see more of that thing. You know, if I like something, I don't want it to fail. There's people out there, I think, that generally, you know, they have a big problem, I guess you could say, with wanting things to just fail, even though they have no firsthand or even secondhand, you know, experience with the product.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think, like you said, the market has to correct itself after a certain point of time.
Yeah, I think. Did you see Shaka's comment there about the printing out GOG and Steam copies?
Yeah,
That's a
I've been
I know
seeing that. I've been seeing that a lot too. And the thing is, to me, is kind of like I look at this and I go, "That's cool," and I'm happy you can do that. But just how many people want to do that? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's nice to have that option. It's just like the same thing with like a physical copy, multiple storefronts, different ways to access it. You know, people competing against each other, and I go, that's cool for the people who want to do that. But if we're seeing so much with like this digital stuff, like a lot of people just don't want to do that.
I just want to remind you again that what CD Projekt started off as was not a legal business. They were pirating games and then reselling them. And there is a large market for that sort of thing in a lot of these so-called third world countries. Like if you go to the Middle East, I watched a video. I'll see if I can find it maybe and send to you. But there's a very large sort of used games and DVDs market in one of these Middle Eastern nations, where you can just go in and buy consoles with all of the games downloaded, or you can buy physical versions of burned games. And then those illegitimate companies, eventually, once they get big enough, like CD Projekt, they become real game publishers. And then you've got things like limited run pop out of that kind of stuff, like hobbyists like that going around printing out their own games for Steam or GOG could then turn that into a business. They could reach out to the developers of those games and say, "Hey, we really like your game. Your game is available DRM free. Would you allow us to license out and print out and mass produce physical copies of your game for PC?" So businesses can come out of that. It's not. I understand that right now that sort of thing is very much a niche, but that could grow into a small business.
Here's what I would say. I grew up with Mexicans my entire life, so I'm well aware of the binder full of DVD burned copies of PlayStation 2 games that go on, and the modded Xboxes and the modded PlayStations and everything else like that. I'm not going to dispute that point that these things exist. I just feel like when we start seeing basically the noose tighten a lot more, and we see with the giant pushback that some companies like limited run games get for quality control and stuff like that, and just how long it takes and how much money it takes to print out physical media, especially in this day and age, it looks like a lot of these companies are trying to tighten that noose as much as possible to force you into stuff. And I'm not necessarily saying like it's a good or bad thing, because there's pros and cons to both, right? The thing I always just kind of caution with everything here is we have this very large, vocal group of people out there who are trying to fuck it up for everyone else, is the best way I could say it. And I would just say, like, look, you got to be more smart about how you get these games and all this stuff out to people. Even if you are a bootlegger and you can kind of become, generally speaking, legit. That's the best way to say it. Like, you can become legit, because we kind of looked at that through history, where a bunch of these like former bootleg crime people during Prohibition made enough money to turn themselves into new money. That's kind of like the joke. I always kind of just caution everyone. It's just like, be smart about how you present yourself to the audience to make yourself look like the good guy, because you're always going to be the bad guy to these multi-billion-dollar companies that want to control their IPs.
Mm-hmm.
Catching up on chat here. He's like Portuguese or something, right? I think I follow him too. Oh yeah, the manual guy you were talking about, AC. I think I've seen that
Yeah,
guy.
I think his account is too old for gaming. He actually just came out to Japan. I wish I would have known that because I wanted to meet him because he's one of the few people out there. So like I said, he's doing manuals. So like he'll make a manual for a modern game. But I'm actually trying to contact him right now on Kickstarter. He actually created with a couple people a kind of like history book for the Resident Evil series, and it's already done. He's shipping them out, and there was like a hardcover book and a soft cover. I have the digital copy if you guys are interested in it. But basically, him and some people put together like everything about Resident Evil to include the most recent announcement, the Veronica game that's coming out, and they just put it all together. And there's a hardcover book, and it's like a passion project, right? And stuff like that's kind of neat. But the game manual stuff is really cool. I don't really care to buy that right now, but he's trying to fill a need out there, and that's kind of what Shaka was talking about with the GOG games and the physical cases and stuff. Like people can make some cool stuff, for games to kind of keep the hobby alive rather than just like the physical hobby, I should say. So
I I do that too because I don't like to collect loose games anymore,
yeah,
especially if they're cartridge bases. I go on Etsy and I actually have reproductions of Pokemon Game Boy boxes as well in my collection because it's an aesthetic thing. So I
Yeah.
get that too.
also, Etsy is also good for finding labels for like cartridge games. Like I did it for a couple of my N64 games. Like I guess the label was so bad that the retro shop guy just took it completely off. So it was like a blank cassette, and there was a post-it note with the name of the game. So then I just went to Etsy and I found like a guy making labels for the 64 cartridges. It was really cool, and they're very high quality. They look more or less the same, and I mean, the game is there. It's a real game. It's not like it's a ROM hack from online or something.
Yeah, I like I said, I always just get worried about it because when well, my biggest concern is that I don't want emulation and stuff to go away for people. I do believe that I want people to play older games no matter where or how they could get them, especially because the retro market is so insanely high priced, you know?
It's only going to get worse too because of
Yeah.
the quote unquote death of physical media now.
And the store and the digital store closing and everything else
Yeah.
like that.
Mhm.
I worry about that stuff. And when you start to lose avenues, it's how I look. The best way I could say this is think about when you hunt and you try to like lure an animal into a specific part of the like trap that you're trying to put him in. You close off the way, you guide him in here, and it does feel like that's one of my big concerns with the emulation community is that they could be funneled easier now, and then it's just with the right greasing of the palms, they could just destroy a lot of this online, content that we have out there. And I do worry about that a lot, especially with how even in some of these multiplayer games where you could get IP address bans and stuff like that, and some countries are outlawing, VPNs and stuff like that. It's always on my mind where it's just like you don't be the guy that's too braggadocious to be like the lightning rod of like, oh, here we go, there's the lawsuit coming.
I do think there will eventually be some pushback to the sort of corporate overreach in some regard to media in general. I think, especially in the age of AI, it's only a matter of time until copyright and trademarks get like pulled back vastly from where they're currently sitting. I don't think these lifetime license will continue to last. And maybe this is speculation. This is more of a sort of a political question, looking far into the future. But I think that it is likely that, given enough time, as we move into these sort of all digital era, not only for games but movies and TV and music and everything, and there's much more focus on digital ownership or lack thereof. I think we will likely see the governments of the world push back in some regard to consumer rights. It's only a matter of time, and you see some of those efforts already beginning. You see, I believe it was in the European Union, there were two different countries that pushed back against PlayStation, trying to kill physical media, claiming that they needed some alternative way to sell their games because they have a monopoly through their storefront.
Yeah,
So
I don't want to cut you off. Finish your point.
again, I just wanted to point out that the overall point here is that there will likely be some kind of pushback to sort of this closing in and reduction of options. It is inherently anti-consumer and monopolistic what we're talking about with these storefronts. It could just come in the form of, okay, you have to allow Xbox and Steam onto the PlayStation, and you have to allow them to sell the same games or something like that. I don't know what that's going to look like 10, 20 years from now, but that might be the direction we go in.
I feel like another thing too is like, which countries are we talking about here too? Because it could be just as easy for PlayStation to say like, we don't make any money from you, so we don't care, and just pull completely out of the region.
I mean, I suppose that is possible, but overall, it would become too big of an issue for consumers across the world. So some countries would eventually have to speak up and enforce some kind of new changes that would push back on Sony. Because you're right, it is the idea of, one, getting rid of physical media, but two, then pushing or funneling everybody to then buy your games through just your digital storefront is completely anti-consumer and a monopoly in a sense, if not the literal definition. So it's only a matter of time before, even if that is how they feel about maybe smaller countries complaining about it at the moment or giving them some kind of pushback, eventually that has to reach, much larger countries, because something has to be done. Like consumer rights have to be adjusted to this new massive change in the way they're going to do business.
I think the easiest counter argument to that will be like, well, we got competition like Microsoft, we got competition like Steam, we got competition like Nintendo. We don't have, like, our storefront is how we run it and how we curate it because we're a publisher,
Sure, but not for their first party games. If things are going to stay exclusives, then you would like that would be probably another counterpoint to push back and say, well, what about your first party games? And those aren't able to have any competition on these other storefronts. So what about those? Like, so there has to be some back and forth in how this battle goes at the government and then company level for the different countries and Sony. It's Sony itself.
If anybody is going to move mountains, it's going to be the EU, because they have been able to force Nintendo to make a whole new console just to have a removable battery because of their new laws.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
They did the same with Apple by forcing Apple to go to USB-C as the charger, the connection. And they also did the same thing with smartphones in general, or phones in general, where they're required by law to sell a smartphone with a charger. So as much as it's kind of crazy because you use like a bunch of countries, I think like you're concerned there with like the smaller countries, and then they'll eventually get to the big countries. I think the EU would probably be the best bet for kind of challenging those platforms. So that'll be very interesting to see how they're going to tackle that, especially with the Stop Killing Games initiative has really gone a lot of attention from the EU, like Parliament people or whatever they're called, and they're a lot of them seem to be paying attention to that now a lot more. It just depends on if they're who's funding their the bank accounts in the back end, right? As far as what do you call that? Influencing them. The lobbyists,
they don't have the same lobbyist issue that the U.S. does. They've got different laws about lobbyists, but we do know that the initial wave Stop Killing Games failed in the EU, largely because of game industry concerns. But that is going to be moving forward to a second hearing, as I understand.
I would say that even though that you could get some wins from government bodies, you also will get just as many losses with everything out there. I always get tempered about that.
It's true. And another thing, and I'm not necessarily a big proponent for government intervention. Like I would consider myself generally pretty libertarian. I think you'll also see rival publishers or rival consoles, maybe Xbox, maybe Valve, um, comes forward and does something that is more in favor of the consumer and sort of forces the hand of a PlayStation or a Nintendo. Um, Now, PlayStation and Nintendo are a little bit more resistant to that sort of thing, but competition can also help to offset some of the anti-consumer practices we see, and that's also why it's so important that we have a thriving, competitive field of consoles.
Well, and to that point, I would prefer to see it go that way because I think that kind of free market settling the score and evening things out for consumers, for companies, is the best way to go about things. Because I agree, I don't really love, the idea of having it go to this whole government intervention type of thing. I'd rather see the market, consumers, kind of get a win and force PlayStation to change this decision and go back to the way of physical, even if it's in smaller amounts. Will that happen? I don't know. I hope so. But that kind of leads to how we started this conversation, or circles back, I should say, to how we started the
competition, yeah.
with competition. And one of the first, my main point about competition almost always is that I do think, it's always got more, it's usually got, I guess, more positives than good, at least when it comes to, consumers and this kind of stuff. Because that competition fuels change, whether it's in policy, like we're talking about now, which we hope it does at some point, but innovation, everything. I mean, it changes so much. It pushes these companies to try to be better than the one next to them. So again, hopefully this is a case where it does play out that way, and the competition from the other companies pushes Sony to, reverse what I think is a ridiculous decision.
So I want to kind of go off of a saying that I heard before, and I kind of like it. We know what the problem is, we just don't know what the mitigation is. And I think that's just a very true thing here. It's like we can predict a problem, we can kind of run a model, we can see how it could all go bad, but we do not know what the innovation will be to help mitigate this problem. We don't know who's going to fill in. It's kind of like we were kind of talking about with we don't know what a successful video game can be as much as well. You never know what's going to be a hit, and it's kind of like the same thing. You never know what's going to be a win. Basically, like we were taught, I read an article like when the announcement was announced about physical games going bye-bye, the EU basically said we can't really do anything about that. But that being said, you don't know if a certain lobby group will get through and they get enough votes and they get enough change. But even then, it's just like we don't know if those laws will actually be super strictly enforced and done everything. It's a lot easier to, I think, to do some things like change a charging port to more of a massively available one, like a USB-C one from the proprietary Apple one. I think that could be a lot easier for them to change versus something like forcing a company to print or keep games online when they don't want to, It comes down to just like it's a numbers game at the end of the day. And we've seen things that even if you win, eventually they do go by the way of the dodo, just kind of like what they got the PlayStation 3 and the Vita store to unchange his decision, I think 5 years ago. And now we're 5 years later, and now they're saying, yeah, it's time. We're shutting it down. We don't care anymore. And I'm just thinking bigger picture.
I would like to point out a discussion point on the topic of price that sort of takes us back to that sort of idea of the market competition sort of angle. And that is the idea that games, while they have in theory gone up to $80, really we don't have a large number of $80 games. We've got GTA 6 coming up. We have Mario Kart 8. The number of $80 games is actually pretty small. Most games have continued to sell at $70, and some games continue to even sell at $60. Recently, we had the double pack of Call of Duty Black Ops 1 and 2 re-release on PlayStation for $60 or $30 each. You had Oblivion Remaster come out last year at $50. You had Expedition 33, I believe, was at $40. You have games regularly, AA games coming out of that 40-50 range. You have smaller AA games coming out at 30, and you have indies coming out at 10, 20, 15, 5, 2.
Well, the Halo remake was $50 too, just recently.
Yeah, 50, and that's an effort from Halo, which is in theory one of Xbox's biggest franchises. Like there is a breadth of pricing on games now, and publishers are becoming savvy to the idea that not all games have the same size budgets, and gamers are not willing to pay the same price for every game release. I think that this is part of how the industry addresses the sort of pricing problem. And I think that sort of breadth of options also we've seen play out somewhat in the hardware space. We haven't seen it as much in the traditional consoles, but I just want to point out recently the Steam machine, while overpriced, yes, I think we can all agree on that. The Steam machine came out with 4 different options, starting at 1,050, going all the way up to just, I think, 1,450. 4 different options, one with or without a controller, and then a larger amount of storage. I think we'll continue to see more options and pricing. Also, somebody mentioned earlier, gold editions of games, or the release that comes with the season pass or the DLC. I think that is largely how we're going to address, or publishers are going to continue to address the rising prices by giving us different options, maybe giving us hey, the game is free to play for the first 10 hours or something, like a free trial. We could see more free trials. We could see more demos. So I think there's a breadth of ways that the pricing issue can be addressed from a market sort of standpoint.
I think, kind of to add on to your point, like you were saying, there is still ways to get value and kind of pick and choose what you want to do. Like, do you want to wait for a sale? Is this game appropriate priced? Are these, publishers starting to play around more with what would be the best way to put it? Different types of pricing. There's like a term, I can't remember the term off the top of my head, but they're working around with that stuff a little bit more. And like you were saying, there's a few $80 games. I know the new Fire Emblem game is going to be $80.
Yeah, don't forget Bonanza was $80 too.
Was Bonanza $80?
Was it?
I could have swore it was $80, but
I thought it was $70.
I also thought 70 because I got Mario Kart World with the bundle for the Switch too, so I was like all happy I didn't pay the full 80.
Yeah, and then that's a correction there. I think I want to say it was notably 70. But you're in a different market, right? So
yeah, $69.99 right now digitally.
Yeah, I thought it was 70.
Well, that's digitally. I know Yoshi's the Yoshi game had the digital versus physical price difference, but
that was a big that caused a kerfuffle.
I don't think this game was. It was too early, I think, in the Switch's life cycle right now. I'm going to check on Best Buy.
Mario Kart was 80 day and date, but that was also an experiment, and they also wanted to try to push you to get the bundle.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, you guys are right. I misremembered. It was definitely $70. I'm seeing.
Boo! No, I'm kidding.
Well, I remember being surprised it was 70 because when I thought Nintendo was just going to start rolling out the $80 games and going with it, and I was like, oh no. So I actually was curious if maybe the backlash to Mario Kart World's pricing made them kind of hold off from immediately implementing it to all of their games. I feel like they're going to kind of spearhead that jump. I actually talked about this in a recent video when I was doing talking about GTA's pricings. I feel like Nintendo might be the ones that seem like they really want to spearhead that jump into the next bracket. And they won't be the only ones. Obviously, other games will follow. We're already seeing it with GTA 6. I would just say my warning to gaming companies, which I don't think they need my warning. I think they're smart enough to know this. And I think Grim points out that a lot of them are already doing a lot of dynamic pricing.
That's it. That's the word.
Yeah.
I think a lot of them are already kind of doing that. So I think they're smart enough to know this. They don't need my warning, but I would say it anyways. It's just because people are willing to do $80 for some games, don't for a second believe that they're going to be willing to do it for your game. Some people will be willing to do it for a Mario Kart game. Some people will be willing to do it for GTA 6. They're not going to be willing to do it for, let's just pull a random example. If Ubisoft says they got the next quadruple A pirate ship game, they're not going to be willing to pay $80 for that because there's no reason, like there's no legacy background behind it that has an attached fan base willing to do it. I wouldn't just jump to think people are going to be so willing to just toss you $80 for your brand new game. Plus, we're living in a time when kind of what AC pointed out earlier about like not people aren't really buying 30 games a year. People are barely even have the time to play 20 to 25 games a year, never mind actually buy them all. So I think you're seeing an era of patience and waiting for sales that you haven't seen before. I know I do it all the time where I'm like, dude, I really want to play this game, but number one, I don't really want to pay the price for it at the moment. And number two, I know I don't have the time to play through this at the moment. I already have a backlog that's a mile long. So why am I going to buy this now for $80 for it to sit collecting either physical or digital dust when I could just wait till it's on sale for 50, 40, 30. And even if it's one of those AAA games we talked about that doesn't really ever see a sale below 40, well, shoot, I'll still wait to pay 40 instead of 70 or 80 if you do decide to price it at that. So I'll still wait for that sale just because is it what I want? No, I'd like a little bit more off of it, but it's still a hell of a lot cheaper than retail or what you're initially released it at. So I have no issue waiting for that. And I think a lot of people have ventured into that kind of mind state where buying games day one isn't quite what it used to be. So like, what's the harm in waiting for a sale anyway? So I would just say be wary. If you think your product or your game is going to be one that should be sold at 80 and you think that's the new trend and you want to hop on board, just be wary because I don't know that that's going to hold true for every game that tries to do it.
So this is kind of like a good segue into probably my final point. I have obviously the economy situation with people as well. There's no need to really go into too much detail with that. Some things are better, some things are worse. So people have to figure out how they budget their stuff to also bring in like how many games they buy a year. Some people just can't afford, that $30 game. Some people just don't want to spend that money right away and want to wait for a sale because, your dollar doesn't stretch as far as it used to. There's no ifs, ands, buts about that. But it kind of goes back to like my final point. I'm just going to kind of read this one too, because this was my final point. I feel like this is a good way to start wrapping up this conversation as well. So my fourth point was excitement. And I said in my thoughts, generally speaking, there isn't as much massive excitement for the next big entry in a lot of games as there used to be, except for things like GTA 6. More gamers are excited to play to just play their backlogs because prices are too high, or they don't like that they don't own the new games. Not to mention the latest controversy of the week, from layoffs to buggy launches to games being shut down. It strikes at the heart of many issues with gamers' excitement, which normies won't latch onto like they used to. And basically what I keep saying like that is you just go online and just people are generally, bombarded with negative news. Oh, these studios shut down. Oh, this game launched and is not working properly. One of the people that I guess we could, if we got some time, I could bring it up. But Paul Tassi, has basically been known for being the Destiny guy. What's he going to do now with Destiny not gone? He invested pretty much a lifetime's worth of effort covering it, playing these games and stuff like that. With many of these games kind of reaching end of life services, and they're basically saying like, well, what do I do now? It's like, this was the only game I played. I don't really know if I want to go and play a different game because this was it for me. It does, kind of go to the heart of the issue, I think, with a lot of people. especially probably some of us who are kind of more close into the sphere, it's just that we're constantly being bombarded by people just telling you to hate everything, just to be upset about everything, just to like be annoyed because, oh, you know, the grass in this frame does not match up the grass in this frame of this other console. So that means this one's crappy, right? It runs at, you know, 59 frames over 60. So that means we got to be upset. Or the social issue elements where it's just people who aren't even aware of anything that goes on in gaming, just have to make these like incredibly crappy content videos trying to just make an audience of people very unhappy, and they kind of just spread like, you know, rats spreading the plague a little bit, and they just bring down the conversation. Grim, I see you trying to make a point. I'll get right to you, so I won't talk anymore. But Grim, yeah, go ahead, say what you want to say.
Sure. Sorry, that might have been just background noise, but I just want to point out that most of this is just manufactured outrage. It's social media. It's the attention economy. These journalists, quote unquote, are trying to drive clicks to their website so that they can pay their bills. And so they give us outrageous clickbait titles for their articles, and then the article is written by AI and it's 3 paragraphs long.
Oh yeah.
And it's just they attach onto the one bad thing and ignore all the good things. And then the YouTubers will do the same thing. Not to like throw any shade or anything.
No, I'm terrible.
Right.
I deserve all my hate.
Yeah, so it's that's what spreads on social media. That's the algorithm that we have right now, and that's part of the reason the algorithm is the way it is human nature. But that's also like an intentional choice on the behalf of these social media companies. Is that's what they push to the front because that's what engages clicks. That's what gets them advertising money. And so that's all that really circulates, and people grow up on and learn and live through social media. And that's so there are people that only know how to be angry at everything. They don't know how to constructively criticize or how to look at the good and the bad and weigh the two together. I think also with games like GTA 6, one of the things that allows a Rockstar game to stand apart from, say, let's say a Bethesda game, is Rockstar comes along, they put out a trailer, then they shut up and don't say anything for months. Then you've got these other studios that come out, they say one thing out of one side of their mouth and the thing out of the other side of the mouth. You've got the leakers come in and say, hey, this is actually what's going on behind the scenes. The leakers are really like screwing up a lot of the conversation around things.
Oh god, yeah, you're right.
Like, so there's just too much communication about games a lot of the time. And when there's too much communication about these big games, that leads to more negative. That leaves more room for negative conversation.
A lot of counter signaling. That's, I think, the term they use now.
Yeah, and I think it's a lot of these. Like the moment there's anything negative at all about anyone or any game or any company, like these engagement based websites will like farm that for content. I remember maybe a year ago, before all of the pricing and everything became a big conversation about the Steam machine, Valve was the gaming community's darling. Couldn't do anything wrong. But the moment the whole pricing conversation started with Valve, suddenly there are these gaming websites, and you can find the couple of them that are out there that are claiming that Valve is anti-competitive. Everything that Valve is doing is wrong. They're a monopoly. Yeah. They're the worst company that's ever existed because it drives clicks. Like the moment one bad thing comes out, your company is trash. You're dragged through the mud. You have companies like Bethesda who are dragged through the mud somewhat deservedly, but then it's taken to an extreme. So I think it's just social media, the way social media is designed. Long story short.
So I have one thing, and I'll get to you, Jay and AC, real quick.
Mhm.
Recently, I actually did have a Twitter conversation with the EIC, the editor in chief, for people who don't know what that is, for VGC News, Video Games Chronicles is the correct term. And it does feel like there is also a massive disconnect too with games media being absolutely kind of having a derangement syndrome from all these bad interactions with YouTubers and stuff. And they don't want to acknowledge that they themselves kind of allow these bad actors and these bad practices to kind of override a lot of their issues. One of my big problems I have with video games journalists is not necessarily that they're all bad. By far, we still use these, video game sites to get our news and information. But there's been this big lack, I think, of just journalism in games journalism. I feel like there's maybe 3 real games journalists list: Jason Schreier, Steve Totillo, and just a random third guy that kind of comes in here. All right, and the whole industry waits for them to say something, and then they all just kind of run with the same story. They're basically at this point not interested in actually making news, getting articles, and talking to the people like they used to be. And on top of that, too, when I was talking to him, I'm just trying to have a conversation with him, and he's just like, everything that he's saying is like, oh, YouTubers this, YouTubers that. And I'm like, okay, we're 10 tweets into this conversation, and all I've learned so far is that you fucking hate YouTubers, which loud and clear, got that probably 9 tweets ago, and you only want to share your article with me. You don't want to engage with me and be a person. Like I'm asking you, like you tell me like you love to collect. Well, what's your favorite console you own? I asked him that question, no response. And you're going on about all these YouTubers, and my argument is be like, okay, well then I know you hate these YouTubers because they give you black eyes, but like, will you talk about like these other journalists that write these incredibly dishonest and incredibly terribly researched articles, some of them political, some of them just bad, that kind of give you a black eye? And would you like to also, are you also calling people like Jason Schreier, who does a YouTube show now? Are you saying like he's a terrible YouTuber? Are you going to say like people like Destin Legary now, who's a big YouTuber, is he now trash because he's not working at IGN anymore and he just does his own independent YouTube thing? Are you calling people like Paul Tassi, who last night I brought it up on his show? He said he makes no money writing articles. Like it's just not worth it for him anymore, and he's trying to figure out what he's going to do in YouTubing. Like, would you want to talk about some of these issues? And instead, he just blocks me. He's like, "Oh, you're just trying to get me to talk bad about the industry." I'm like, "No, I'm not trying to get you to talk bad. I want to hear a real conversation with you. I don't need a 15 page essay about why you hate YouTubers. I hate YouTubers too. All right, we all have issues with people, but I'm not trying to attack you. I'm being very honest and just being very focused because I want to talk to you like a person. I want you to go back to being like a person, but you're making it very hard to, prove that your industry isn't full of insane people when you go on these giant insane rants with me, and we can't find a common ground. We can't have that little camaraderie. We can't just talk about what we like. It's, you got to tell me about what you hate, and you got to defend your industry to a point. I get it. You want to defend your work, and I'm not saying, and I was telling him, I was like, I'm not calling out your work in particular. I told him I like VGC. I think it's a really good news website. But it's just like, what you're doing here, though, and after you blocked me and everything, you're still going on these giant rants behind a block. I look at it and go like, man, what am I going to do here? Yeah. Am I going, why do I still want to be here? Do I still want to follow you? Because I feel like there is that thing where it's like, I don't want to get super personal with you, but at the same time, it's like, you're getting so super personal. It's kind of off putting.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's just one thing I kind of wanted to add with, the video games media, as I like to say. Anyone else want to hop in real quick with the point?
Well, I think both of you guys make great points in terms of the professional journalism side of things and where it is, and also the kind of social media / YouTube side of things. I think it's just a hyper polarized kind of scene right now. And I think hyper negativity kind of reigns supreme over getting views and clicks and, whatever. So I do think that whole kind of collection of both the professional journalism side and the YouTuber side of it, or YouTuber, whatever you're on, with platform. I'll just use that as kind of a general platform.
Yeah, I hate when people get upset about that. I'm like, oh, I'm not on YouTube. I'm like, motherfucker, you know what I'm talking about.
It's like
the conversation.
Exactly. Like the kind of independent person just putting their thoughts out there. However, whatever means
streamer. There you go.
Yeah,
Streamer.
whatever. However you're doing it. I just think I think you guys kind of hit a lot of the nails on the head there with what's going on with those two divisions of things. So I'll just kind of talk about general why it doesn't feel like excitement's the same. And to me, I think it's largely because we're just living in a different time. Especially for us who kind of experienced life before. I think, at least, I don't really know. I know me and Carl are generally the same age, so I don't know everybody here's age, obviously, but I think we all experienced the time before social media. And having it now, I feel like we're just a bit desensitized to new things that we're hearing about coming out, because you just get bombarded with it every day. You go on to X any given day and you've got this person's making this game, or this studio's got this game, this person's cast as the voice, this movie's coming out, these people are cast as these like there's just so much new, get excited about this, look at this new thing we're doing, that like I think we've just become somewhat desensitized to it all, where it's not all that exciting anymore. And we have seen so much in the realm of video games and all kinds of entertainment media that it's like, just for example, I'll use a TV show that's coming out, the new Harry Potter TV show. It's like, get excited, we're doing Harry Potter again. And it's like, well, I mean, I already read all the books, I already watched all the live action movies. Like, I don't really need a new live. If it's good, I'll watch it, but like, I'm not really getting excited for it. I'm like, I've already kind of done all that. So there is a little bit of like, we've seen so much that like it's hard to still get excited when you just hear that they're redoing this or doing another one of that. But even when it comes to new original stuff that looks interesting, like I'll give a game example, A Clockwork Revolution. That's probably one of my most like I'm generally fairly excited for that game. I can't wait to play it. I can't wait to get my hands on it and just dive into that one. But do I feel the same way about that one as I did, say, like, when Batman Arkham Knight was getting announced? And that was even in the social media era still. I was just at this point, 11 years ago.
Yeah.
Honestly, probably 12. Because I feel like I first heard the announcement in 2014 because it was supposed to be a 2015 release, which I do think it ended up being. But regardless, I don't have the same excitement for A Clockwork Revolution. I was going to say Clockwork Orange for a minute. Clockwork Revolution, as I did that, because it's just a different time to me. I just feel like I'm so bombarded with, and maybe that's because of what I do for YouTube. Like I do try to at least cover film, TV shows, movies, all that kind of stuff, games. So maybe I'm desensitized to it a little bit more because my feed is filled with it, because I'm trying to stay on top of the next big announcement, the next big thing, so I can see if it works for making a video or something for me. So maybe that's a personal experience I've had with it, where I just feel like I'm bombarded with it every day. And I don't mean to use that term in a negative sense. I know it sounds like it's got a negative connotation. It's just kind of the most accurate way to say, like, you're just getting hit with all this new stuff all the time.
Yeah.
That it's like, I just don't have enough excitement in me for that stuff to just get excited for every one of them. So I do think we're just almost overexposed to announcements sometimes now, where it's like, sometimes it's almost just like a shadow drop. Like, if any companies have the balls to really do it this way, like, let me know just like a month out. Like, hey, guess what? We're dropping next week. Bam, this thing. I'd be like, oh crap! Like, I wasn't expecting that. Like, when you just get like, here's the teaser trailer, here's this next trailer, here's another trailer. It just gets to the point where it's like, all right. Like, even Wolverine the other day just dropped, like, we're dropping the story trailer, and now I'm kind of like, you know what? I don't really need to see anymore. Just, we're a couple months out. Just let me get to the game. Like, that didn't really build any extra excitement for me. It didn't do anything to put me in the opposite direction either. But I watched it and I was just kind of like, oh, okay, cool. Just get me to the game. Like, that's just where I'm at with it. So I don't know. Maybe it's a little bit of just desensitized or jaded or overexposed, however you want to put it. I just feel like sometimes I at least get hit with so much of it that I have a hard time getting excited for every last little bit of news and announcements and updates that come out.
I feel you a little bit on that one, but hold on a second here. Neo says content creator. I'd rather you
I
call
guess
me a
that's a good one.
slur. Just call me a slur. I'd rather be called a slur than a content creator.
Influencer? How about that one?
I'd rather be hit by a bus. I just find that cringe. I mean, I get it. I feel like that's just because I'm older. That feels like more of a Zoomer thing for people to say. I watch some Zoomer guys, obviously, because of the thing that, like, you know, when you're into nerd culture, you obviously have to go with the gray cocks, as I like to call them, and then like the young guns, and I just go like, it's like that stuff is for mommy bloggers.
That's actually a point I wanted to bring up, sort of in response to what Jay is saying. I think it's also important to remember sort of the age factor. We're all, I assume, older, getting up there, maybe into the 30s, maybe early 40s. I don't know.
I think AC, you're the youngest one here, correct? If I recall.
Yes, I have not hit 30 next month.
Next month.
Okay. Well,
welcome to the
that
club,
age,
buddy.
Like,
It's all downhill from there.
Oh no.
I think the excitement factor is probably different for us. We're maybe a little more jaded. We've seen games come out, and like we've seen Cyberpunk released and was like a mess at launch. Like we've got those experiences where when we see a pretty trailer, or especially if we see a trailer that has no gameplay and it's all just like CGI, we know better than to get excited for something like that. Whereas someone younger can still fall for those sort of marketing tactics. I think that's a part of it as well. Also, on the note of younger players, a lot of younger players are playing these free-to-play games, or they're playing games on phone and iPad, and so they're just not in the same sort of conversations where they're not watching these E3 or Keeley shows or whatever during the summer, and maybe some of them will watch the Game Awards. That seems to be a pretty big thing. It's drawing larger and larger audiences each year, but I don't know. I think age is a big factor for why there's not as much excitement. If the Zoomers get excited about it, it will go viral.
I agree with you a lot too, and I think I've said this before. I think you've all heard me talk about it. It's like people need to understand when you watch a show, it's not just watching a show for what you like. Sometimes you also have to kind of remove yourself and think about why the show is structured a certain way, why they're showing off certain games and stuff, you know? And AC, do you like to add something here? You've been kind of quiet, so let's try to get you involved here.
Yeah, I'm trying to decide what I want to add because you guys are all making some really valid points about stuff. I mean, man, the conversation has gone all over the place. The one thing I just thought about that Grim was saying, so like, you know, Zoomers, they're not really watching these shows, but they are watching. I feel like they are watching the old heads, the unks, I guess you would call them, that are reacting to those streams. Like, one example that I can think of is Maximilian Dude on Twitch, and he's on YouTube now. You know, big fighting game content creator, but he watches like all of these Nintendo Direct, State of Play, Xbox Showcase, and I would imagine a lot of his. I mean, he's got a massive audience. I would imagine a lot of them are Zoomers, and so he's kind of in a way educating those people like, hey, look, this is what's coming out, and I'm going to react to it as like the older guy here that has experience with a lot of these series. Or, oh, there's like this new series, I'm going to check it out and see how it is, you know. So um I mean, I guess a lot of the Zoomers, if they are watching these guys, they're kind of learning it about these new games from those people. But like you said, they're not going out of their way, or they're too fixated on the mobile games and the free to play games to really go out of the way to try, you know, like Resident Evil, for example, or even like Beasts of Reincarnation, right? You know, like that's a crazy game that's coming out that I wonder how many people know who's actually the quote unquote developer for it. So,
or the story behind it too. I just found out a bunch of stuff about that game.
Yeah, it it is a weird world, and that's why I think for all of us here, well, I don't know about Grim, but like most of us here, you know, our part of our YouTube channels is we want to kind of create this evergreen content and for the youngins, I guess, but also the old people to come check out. Like, hey, this is what I'm interested in. here's what I'm playing, and this is why I like it, and it can be both old games and new games. And I think like
Mm-hmm.
YouTube's a great platform for that because, you have the what did they call it, the VODs, right? So like you can
Mm-hmm.
watch them later. You don't have to live stream everything, and so I think it's a good service that we could provide for the young people to get into games. Then again, like I talked to my sister, who's I think like she's either 17 or 18, and she's played Alien Isolation, which I haven't even played that game, and she went out of her way to play that game. I don't know how she like found it because she doesn't come off as somebody that would play like a scary game like that. So it kind of like took me back that like she went out of her way to play this game, Alien Isolation, of like all games she could have been playing. So I mean, I guess it depends on friend groups as well. Like maybe she
Mm-hmm.
saw it from a friend, maybe because I definitely didn't recommend that game, and maybe she saw a YouTube video of somebody explaining it and it was like a really cool video about it, or maybe she saw a Steam. I think it was probably like a Steam sale. Like, hey, what's this game that's like really cheap? And then she jumped into it. So,
Mhm.
um, yeah, it kind of goes back to what you guys. I heard Grim way earlier talking about the Steam stuff. Like, they've updated the wish list stuff and the upcoming games calendar. I actually didn't know about that. That's actually really cool. I'll have to look into that now.
Yeah, I actually also didn't. I don't. I need to check that out for sure.
This is why I bring Grim around, because he knows stuff that we don't.
I'm not even on YouTube. I'm not on social
You're in
media
the
at all.
trenches, that's why.
Yeah.
No, Grim's the guy that everyone should know. Like that's another thing too, kind of to that point. You should try to have that more diverse group of people, quote unquote, of just different type of gamers and stuff. Like Shock says here, and I agree with him. Biggest issue with the internet is people are able to dump their friends if they disagree on something, and find someone who does versus being semi obligated to stay friends with someone despite disagreement. That also kind of plays into a lot of like that excitement stuff. AC and me have been kind of seeing that with some of the hot takes online where people are just like, enjoy your slop, consumer.
Mm.
And I'm just like, my guy, I like something. It's fine if you don't like something. I get that. Like I always tell people, I'm like, you can look at a trailer and go, like Grim says, just like, yeah, we've seen that, we're not impressed, and everything else like that,
Mm.
And
I'm reminded of that meme of like the three people sitting around the TV having fun playing a game, somebody yelling at them, quit having
Oh,
fun.
yeah.
Yes.
Well, try to be somebody who enjoyed Mixtape when it came out a couple months ago.
Oh my God,
Woof.
the most
Was that a tough time on X? I'm like,
The
all
mo-
right, I guess nobody liked this game but me.
like we said, it's just these forced controversies. Like it just like we're gonna. I think it was like sometimes it's funny the like forced controversies. Like I don't know if you guys remember this, but you know who Millie Molly Brown is, right? The girl from Stranger Things. She played 11.
Millie Bobby Brown. I'm like,
Millie Bobby Brown.
I'm
thank
like,
you.
is this a different one that I should
I
know?
could-
or
I-
is it
I-
just coincidentally close name?
Listen, I don't watch TV as much as like some people, but I know enough to kind of be generally right. But I remember like there was a whole day on I think Twitter where they just like kept making all these memes about her being like a racist and a hateful person and stuff.
Oh sheesh.
And
that.
Like it was funny, like because obviously they're saying a bunch of like over the top stuff. It's like clearly she's not, but it's just like, but now it's gone to be like, well, now instead of just making fun of celebrities and rich people, now it's turned into, oh, you enjoyed something, my YouTuber told me to hate it. Or my games media outlet said I need to hate it and be upset about it, so therefore I'll be projecting onto you, the person who actually enjoyed something, what others told me, and I have no interest of experiencing firsthand.
I think that's what gets so frustrating with it is like, I'll use Mixtape as an example since I just brought it up.
Mm-hmm.
Like Mixtape it's like a cinematic experience, really.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, is it a traditional game? No. Does it technically qualify as one? I don't know. I guess I don't really care about because that was one thing. Saw a whole bunch of people like that wanted to complain about it who clearly did not play the game, just were seeing, selective clips to show that this game just plays itself and blah, 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 blah. It went from like them wanting to be like, oh, it's woke, and then when they realized it wasn't woke, it became, oh, this game plays itself. There's not even a fail state or anything. This is blah blah blah. It can't possibly be a game. And it was just like, dude, have you even just tried to play it? Like, have you just downloaded it, turned it on, heard that first Devo track hit, and just skateboard down this little road? Like, if you just did at least that, maybe you'd be able to be like, oh, okay, so at least I can see what some people are getting out of this. It felt very movie like, and maybe you have to be into movies, cinematic stuff to enjoy what it is, because it's not a super interactive game. I'm not going to sit here and tell you it is. It's not like you're playing Elden Ring. You're doing basic things, walking around rooms and, looking at this, and it's telling you a bit of story. And then you've got these goofy little kind of mini game things to do. Like, it's nothing crazy, but if you can just sit and enjoy it for what it is, it's like, all right, that was a cool little experience. That was fun. The music in it's awesome, like blah, blah, blah. But if you try to judge it for something it's not, I mean, obviously you're going to have all these critiques and these negative things to say about it. But to me, that's like, you're not even being fair to it, because you haven't tried it. You haven't played it. You're just taking that opinion from somebody else and spamming it all over the internet because they're telling you to be upset about it. Well, and I always use the saying, I'm like, for me, it's, if you judge a rock by its ability to be a tree, then it's going to fail every time. But if you judge it by its ability to be a rock, it's going to do pretty well. And that to me was Mixtape. If you're trying to call like, this isn't a game, it's not like blah, 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 blah. Well, like, that's not what it's trying to be either. So don't try to judge it to be that. Judge it for what it is. But to do that, you have to play it. And I don't think enough people played it.
Every year, if you go on OpenCritic, Metacritic, look at the highest rated games of the year, you will find a game that you've never heard of that is a visual novel that is sitting at the top of those highest rated games lists every year. And that's the thing, is Mixtape is not a visual novel. It wasn't made in Japan. So because it's Western, this basically, it's a walking sim with light elements of activity, right?
Yeah.
That's what it is. But it's an interactive media still. It's not a movie. It's not a TV show. It's interactive media. So that's, if you want to put it in some separate league and say it's not a video game because it's not doing certain things, fair enough. But it is a form of interactive media, and it is very good for what it's doing.
Agree. And I think that's a fair point, Grim, where it's like, if you want to put it in that little subcategory, fair enough. You technically could. I think what annoyed me was that people felt like it felt like people were just trying to go out of their way to diminish what it is and remove it from a category just because they had to not like it because IGN gave it a good score. Like, it just didn't feel genuine that they really wanted to define it as what it is because it's helpful to putting it in its category, to judge it properly, critique it properly. It felt like it was just to be disparaging towards it and diminish it for what it is by comparing it to something it's not, which was just like, come on, man.
So that's what I kind of wanted to say too. I'm glad you brought that up. It does feel like it's that other meme where it's like Rotten Tomatoes score agrees with me. Oh, it's great. Yeah. It's wonderful and awesome. Rotten Tomatoes score disagrees with me. Page shills, everything.
Right.
And that's what it comes down to. And I had this conversation really early on with a bunch of these anti-woke people I used to associate with very early on when we were talking about games media. I'm like, guys, what are we doing here? I know we like to dump on them because there are some bad people in the media, but when we come to Game of the Year time, what always wins? An Elden Ring, a Dark Souls game, Sekiro, like all these games that you say that games journalists can't play. Apparently the games journalists will give it nothing but praise and awards and everything else like that. And it's even funny. Like, we saw what happened this year where people are like, IGN gave Mixtape a 10. Oh, they're terrible. They're just shills. They'll just shill everything. And then what happened a few months later? Mandalorian Grogu comes out and they said it's trash. I'm like, so what is it? What is IGN, guys? Are they shills or what are they? But, AC, would you like to add some more to that?
One thing I wanted to bring up earlier was, it's kind of interesting, at least for me. I see kind of like two factions in this quote unquote culture war with the video games and stuff. So you have the one faction that live or die by the game critics, like the IGNs and the Kotakus and stuff. And then you have the other side where they live or die by the YouTube reviewers, or well, they're not even reviewers, but the YouTubers. And it's just interesting how they're kind of like a Venn diagram if you put them together, how they
Mm.
like both fan bases react the same way, they both behave the same way.
Hmm.
It's all just like whatever god they want to put above them, and they want to worship in this like this gaming landscape. And um I wanted to mention that earlier because one of you guys was talking about the what was mixtape, right? Like if what I wanted to say with mixtape is if none of the official review sites gave it like such high scores, like it was just kind of went under the radar, I don't think it would have had such a like negative impact or
Nope.
negative
Yep.
attention around from the YouTube side of stuff. I
Hmm.
think like people have been like, oh, this is a weird game, and then like kind of brushed it off. But because like all of them gave it like basically perfect scores, it riled up the opposite side of this
Hmm.
culture war. And of course that's going to cause some conflict. And I'm trying to think of like the opposite side. So I'm trying to think like what was a game that I guess everybody got hyped for. Oh no, I guess Stellar Blade would be a good example, right? All the YouTubers propped up Stellar Blade because of, the character, but then all the game journalists, pushed it down because it was like inappropriate or whatever, even though I think the game overall still reviewed really well. So it's
Was
just
that
really
subset of the critics, like the
oh, subset.
Kotakus?
Okay. Yeah. Um, it was just interesting to see there's like the two sides here and how they're very similar, but like it's all based off of like what their leaders declare
Hmm.
and the orders that they give out there. So yeah. Anyways, I when it came to mixtape, I just saw some clips. I'm like, it's not for me, but I'm not gonna like add fuel to the fire and just add my opinion, my uneducated opinion on it because I'm not gonna go play the game. So why should I even give an opinion about it?
Hmm. But I think that's what's fair. Like that's the fair way, or at least not even fair. I mean, it's just the
Common
why would
sense.
you want to get angry about something you haven't even played? Like it just seems like the sensical way to go about it. Like, it
Yeah.
doesn't look like it's for me. Don't really want to play it. I'm gonna move on with my day. Like, I'm not gonna get mad on the internet all day long because IGN liked a game that I don't like because I guess I'm told not to like it. I think that just the whole concept just seems so bizarre to me. And I think you hit the nail on the head, AC. If IGN doesn't put out that review, this game probably flies under the radar. Most people probably don't hear of it, play it, nothing, and it's just something on Game Pass that people maybe give it a try, maybe some don't. It would not have had the absurd like week-long reaction that it had because it's just like it's a little stupid little, I don't mean to say stupid because it's like it's not, I enjoyed it, I don't mean to diminish it. It's just that idea of like it's this little insignificant thing in the whole landscape of gaming. Like, why are you people freaking out just because one liked it? But again, you see it on the other side too. You're 100% right. I do think it's a bit of that. It's two sides to the same coin. I always say it's like the
Yes.
mirror images of each other, where they do the same stuff, behave the same way. It's just with opposite reasoning behind those actions.
I feel
I,
like Grim, you go first.
I was just gonna say, I feel like that brings up the sort of the old adage of any press is good press, right? Like
Yeah.
we're not getting excited about games, but the outright outrage around games is causing them to get visibility. Maybe in the case of AAA games, like the controversy might not be so good for those. Like the controversy surrounding Starfield probably was bad for that game, but the controversy surrounding a mixtape probably led to the game selling far more than it would have otherwise.
I wouldn't have played it without it. So you're 100% right. I wouldn't even have known about it without just saying, I'm like, why is the internet freaking out about this mixtape game? Then I came home that day. I saw it was on Game Pass. I'm like, oh, let me see if it's as bad as they say or if it's as good as IGN says. And then, of course, like anything, it's hyper polarized. So it ended up landing somewhere dead center in the middle for me, where it was not a 10 out of 10 or whatever they gave it. And it also wasn't a 0 out of 10, somewhere in the middle. It was a fine, fun little experience. Like it was a fun thing to play and play through. But yeah, I think you're 100% right. I mean, if I didn't get all that hyper polarized reaction to it, I never would have heard of it, never would have played it. I might have seen it in Game Pass one day, but I don't know that anything would have particularly drawn me to it to even download it if it wasn't that whole hoopla over it.
Yeah,
I was gonna say that's the crazy thing that a lot of people have Game Pass, so they have the ability to try these games for like not for free, but like without a huge cost. and they actively choose not to do that. Like if I
Right.
don't pay for a game, or I have the Game Pass through Discord, so it's like not all the games, it's like a very limited category. But if there's a game on Game Pass that I'm like, I want to try it because of, let's say, like the mixtape situation, I'll probably go and download it just to play for a little bit and see if I'll get into it because it's there. I might as well try it. It
Yeah.
takes time for me to download the game, but none of these people are gonna take that effort or make the effort, excuse me, to go and even download literally like it's like a demo, but it's the full game, and they're not even gonna go do that.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's where you start to wonder, like, how much of this is just kind of bad faith acting because you're too entrenched in the culture war from either side, and you
Mhm.
just want to either prop things up or tear things down because it comes from what you believe to be the other side. Like,
Yes.
how genuine are any of these complaints? And again, I can't stress enough, it is very much on both sides of that coin. So how genuine is any of it, or is it just further attempts to not only entrench themselves in the side they're already on, but try to gain other people to bring to those hyperpolarized sides?
I feel like if we just take away from the culture war stuff in general and just go with just tribalism, period, even we could go with console warriors and stuff like that.
That's another one. Yeah, the console war stuff I've never understood.
I've never understood the console war stuff, and I have had myself viciously attacked by Sony ponies to the point where they even got one of my Twitter accounts banned in like one of the most disgusting.
Rest in peace.
I was so mad about that. I still am very angry about it, but that's neither besides the point. But it's just like I feel like a lot of people my biggest complaint I have is like when we talk to some people, it's like there's no sense of adventure with some people anymore. And I feel like you could say like, yeah, I've been burned so many times about everything. I'm like, yeah, I get that. But how many times have you really been burned? Are we talking like 80, 30, 40, 50 times? Or is it like 3 times because you like Halo and you didn't like Halo 5? And then you didn't like a new entry in a video game and stuff like that. I kind of look at it from a point of just like, like what we kind of talk about when there was that whole big J.K. Rowling controversy where people were ripping off her Harry Potter books and they're just like replacing the covers with without her name on it. And the only thing I can remember was one of the things that was going around on the internet at the time was just like, it's okay to read another book, And I kind of look at it from a lot of people. I'm like, I always just tell you, it's okay to move on from a franchise. If it's not interesting to you anymore, I don't think that there's anything to be gained from subjecting yourself to being upset all the time and continuing to buy, product that you think is subpar. There's literally thousands of games out there that you have never played, that you have never experienced, new, old, whatever you want to do, that you could go out there and you could try to play. I like a lot of these people who always go like retro games are always great and amazing. And I go, I guarantee you will probably find just as many disappointing retro games as you will new and new games as well.
Absolutely.
I feel like for me, and this is just me speaking for myself, I still have that sense of like, I guess, excitement and wonder. I still like to see like the next thing that's going to be coming out. I can't wait to learn more about it, especially if it sounds interesting and cool, And I still, when I go to a retro store now, I still walk into those retro stores and I just peruse what's on, the shelves. Like it's like when I was a kid again, I've said this before on videos and people who know me I love going and buying really interesting, obscure and weird, license games, I don't know if they're good or bad, but if I see Brendan Fraser's The Mummy for the PS1, guess what I'm doing? I'm taking Brendan Fraser home with me to go add that to my collection, and that's what I still find fun. We grew up, a lot of us, I think we all know the angry video game nerd. Who made a whole, career out of just over performing, how bad like video games used to be, like like we know that the gaming industry has always had these issues, and we've seen from if you watch my documentary series that we are going through, we've seen all the crazy stuff that these gaming companies used to do back in the day, with no quality control, no licensing fees or agreements. Like Tetris in itself was just like a big giant one too. It's just how cutthroat that like whole thing was.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wish people would just tune out some of the bad news every now and then. Just go out there and just be like, I'm excited to play a game. It looks cool, it looks fun, and I'm just going to mute and hide any people talking about this game, and I'm going to come to my own opinion about it. I'm one of those people where I don't read reviews at all. Like I'll wait to see a number. I'm the terrible person. I'll look at the number, see what they gave it, and then if it's like very low, I'll be like, is it because of performance? And I'll try to find if it's very glitchy, buggy, and stuff like that. After that, I don't listen to reviews. I don't watch people react to live streams of like the latest announcements. I'll watch them a little bit to see like the pre-show, and then I'll go and I'll watch it by myself because I want my opinion to be basically quarantined. I want myself to just, all right, this is what I'm saying. This is what I'm thinking. Yeah. It's raw. It's my own. And, I've the more and more I like hang out with people, I just feel like some people want to be told what to like. They don't have that sense of adventure anymore. They don't have that drive to just experience something. It's like you guys have all seen the jokes now, where it's like you go to a concert and everyone has their phones out. They're not listening to the band; they're taping the band.
Mm-hmm.
They're not living in that moment.
I think I agree with you. A large part of my enjoyment or excitement from upcoming games comes from two factors. One is anytime there's a press conference, I never watch it in a group. I never watch a stream. I always watch it by myself because I don't want other people to color my opinions. I've made the mistake of watching streams and people like talking shit about games that I care about, or I like the farming sim games that are at all these different showcases. The ones that the streamers will be like, I'm going to go to the bathroom, or we're going to talk over this. Like I like those games. I'm sure there's some football fan out there who's like, hey, why are you talking over the sports? This is what I'm here for. Right. So that's one thing. And the second thing is, I mentioned this earlier, I'm not really on social media almost at all. Really, I've just got Discord and YouTube, and that's it.
Yeah.
And like just the people that I talk to about games are people like it's a small, close-knit group of friends, and we're all different backgrounds. We've all got different tastes in games, and we all get excited about different games. And like there's genuine excitement to be shared in that small group. Once you take it to this sort of anonymity of the online space, you sort of lose some of that knowing the other person on the other side of the screen, and then you get some bad takes, some hot takes because people feel like there's no consequences. They can talk shit without feeling like they're going to do any harm, I guess.
I feel like also to add on to that too, sometimes it's not even sometimes you get a hot take, but sometimes you just will enter a group and then you get like mauled because you have a disagreement as well. And that just drives people away from groups too, where you go into a group and you think, oh, these people are going to be, rational people. They say they're gamers and stuff. And then you dig deep into it and you find out these people basically are LARPers. They don't really know anything of what they talk about, or they greatly embellish their fandom. Then you get the other subsection of the weirdly political people who must make everything political. And then that turns people away as well. And then there's just other times where it's just like, look, you just don't fit in. And then you go like, I don't hate these people. I'm just, I don't fit in here.
Yeah, I guess what I'm saying is find a good group of friends. And instead of like airing all of your feelings and excitement about games on X or Instagram or whatever, and then having the risk of somebody coming in and shitting all over it because they can and there's no consequences. Like, I don't know, just find friends that you can talk to about games and enjoy, and like in a podcast format like this, just be excited and have a genuine conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's much better than going on social media and just shit talking each other. You don't get anywhere. Nobody's actually enjoying or playing games on social media. They're just performing.
Mm-hmm. And that's kind of like what you said. It's just why I wanted to do this is because personally, me thinking, it's just I listen to all these shows and they're not giving me what I want, or they don't know as much as me. And I feel like, well, I started it myself. And, we all evolve, we all grow, we all make friends, and we all change, our beliefs, our factions, whatever you want to say. I think it's one thing I like to tell people is I don't lose people that matter to me. I lose people that I think matter to me. And then at the end of the day, it's just like, what do I really lose from, playing a different game, or watching a different movie, or playing, reading a different book, or hanging out with different people. You're always going to have people that you're going to surround yourself with like-mindedness. But at the end of the day, you also want to hang out with people who make it fun to be like a little bit like of a troll and advantageous and stuff like that,
Well, that's the thing. It's like you want to find, like, I think what Grim said there is the best thing said of the night, which is, definitely find yourself a good group of friends that you can talk to, share your interests with, all that. Don't just spend your time screaming into the void of the internet. It's not useful, and it's definitely not healthy. So I couldn't agree with that more. Find yourself a good group of friends that you can be open with in terms of your likes, your interests, whatever. But to Carl's point too, definitely, you're going to want to be compatible friends and like-mindedness to a degree, but also have some diversity of thought and interest, because it's like sharing new foods and new recipes with people. Like, you might offer something to somebody that you never know they'd like before, whatever it is, game, movie, show, music, and they might offer you something back that you never thought you'd like. And that's kind of the whole point of, I think, at least for myself, but I think most of us here, why we do stuff on YouTube and have these interests and find these circles and all that kind of stuff, is because when something's good, you just want to share it with people who will enjoy it. And that's kind of the whole point of all this stuff. Like, It is fun to enjoy it on your own, don't get me wrong, but I love being able to recommend movies and shows and games to people and have them come back and be like, dude, that was awesome. I absolutely loved it, blah, 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 blah. Because you recommended me that, maybe you'd like this. This is kind of in that genre. I don't know if that whole kind of sharing process, diversity of thought and interest. So it makes, good friendships interesting and have, longevities, because you have different things you can talk about, but also the similar stuff too. So that would be my big thing to take from it, is definitely don't just waste your time screaming into the void of the internet. It's not healthy and it's not worth it.
I think one of the greatest joys of my life is getting people to play video games I like, and having them also become fans of stuff, or, playing games that I like, and they may not like it, like AC with Beautiful Joe. But it's at the same time, I that's what you should be trying to do, is getting people to play games that you like, build a fandom. Hopefully you get more of that stuff, and just have fun. At the end of the day, that's what these hobbies should be. It's just fun. And there's too many people that care more about the drama around gaming than the games themselves. And I think that's a problem. I think that's just my personal problem with a lot of that stuff, where they treat the video game industry as an episode of The Real Housewives of whatever.
No, for sure. I think if your hobby is allegedly gaming, and all you're really getting out of it is being angry on the internet and getting caught up in drama, then I think your hobby might actually be that, not gaming. Like, you might just really enjoy that internet arguing and drama. And hey, if that's what you like, that's what you like. I'm not here to tell you you can't like it or judge you for it. It is what it is. But it's just, sometimes it seems a little bit obvious when you see some of the internet discourse on things, that more people have that as their hobby than actual gaming, or again, movies, TV, whatever. Because this is spread throughout all of pop culture at the moment. This kind of hyperpolarization. So it feels somewhat easy to spot at times when it's like, oh, you just like to do this. You just like to be on the internet doing this. I got it now.
AC, do you have anything you'd like to add? You've been kind of a little quiet.
Yeah, Nerd Takes brought up a good point. I hope Nerdporial is still in the chat talking about if you get recommended something, you should check it out instead of giving up on it. I'm always teasing him about it because he recommends stuff to me, and I'll go out of my way to look into it. And if I try doing it, it's like, nah, I'm done. I'm just messing around. But yeah, I wanted to bring up like tunnel vision. I don't know if that is the appropriate term here, but yeah, a lot of people have tunnel vision where it's like they don't want to experience something new and they just like hyper focus on, like you said, the drama, or like they're only like a specific game series or whatever. They don't want to branch out. And I speak from experience because for the longest time I was a Nintendo only guy and I just did not want to really play anything else. And then I started like nibbling on some random game series, and now I'm like playing all kinds of stuff that I think like 10 years ago I probably would have been I would like if I looked into the future I've been like, why am I playing all these different games? Like this is really weird. And I'm kind of thankful because I met people like Carl, obviously people like Jay here, and then hearing Grimm's, hearing this parrot wearing a wizard's hat talk about Fire Emblem, like people like this, right? It's just cool because social media used to be like the chat rooms or like Facebooks and stuff, but now it's like you can actually have conversations with people live. You can do it in Discord, and you get some cool game recommendations or even movie recommendations. And it has really broadened my horizon. I'm really thankful for that, and now I'm like really trying to make a conservative effort to look into different games that I'm not familiar with and really give them a chance if I can have access to them, right? Like buying them rather than I just don't want to emulate things if I can get my hands on them. So
Right.
it's just like that's what I try to do. Is I try to educate people that way, be like, hey, like go try out this game and see how it is. And I don't go as far as Carl where he's like like buying everybody Dave the Diver. 30 people Dave the Diver, because I mean I would love to do that. I think, for example, everybody should be playing Densha Attack. Like that is a fantastic game, and I will if it starts going on sale, I might start doing that, like buying it for all kinds of people, because that is an amazing game right now. But anyways, yeah, it's just um what do you call it, like a saying that my old boss taught me is teach one each one. So if like you tell somebody about something, they're going to tell someone else about that thing that you told them, and it's just going to multiply. And I think that's a good thing that we're doing right now is like we're addressing the issue, but we're also going to go and tell people, hey, you should try this game out, or if they give you a suggestion, you are open to trying it out. And we got to like embrace that instead of like clowning on people on the internet all the time for their bad takes on stuff.
Like I will always say, I did not become a Yakuza fan until I listened to IGN's podcast, and I did not become a fan of Far Cry Primal until I listened to Sacred Symbols. So
that's impressive. I mean, like, and those are depending on who you talk to, those are two places that people really don't like.
Yeah.
And it's just very simple. It's just like even people I can disagree with, if they talk about something they like passionately and they can get me to try it, like there's nothing wrong with that,
I'm going to convince you all to play Final Fantasy 14.
I'll try again, but Jesus, man, I'm so bad at MMOs, man.
A Realm Reborn's rough.
Yeah, we have to figure it out. But as Jay said, always try to find a good group of friends, and definitely I think I found a very solid one with you three here, and of course the other people that come on the show that give their time and energy to just sit around and talk about video games incoherently for 3 hours when they could be doing something else in their life. So I guess we've reached almost like 3 hours and 10 minutes. So I think it's a really good time to kind of start winding this down, especially for Jay here. He's on the East Coast, so it's already midnight for him.
I got a tea time in like 5 hours.
Yeah, so let's start winding this down here. Jay, do you have anything upcoming? I know you did an Odyssey review, so
yes. In terms of upcoming, got a few things I'm kind of kicking around in the brain, figuring out how I want to get it onto the screen. So a few videos should be coming up on some few different topics, some games, some movies, if you're into movies and TV. But more recently, yes, I do have a Odyssey review out. And then, if you haven't seen the channel before, there's a whole bunch of stuff, kind of backlogs worth of reviews, kind of opinion pieces, different kinds of shorts, retro games, current games, things like that. So a whole bunch to check out if you want to.
Yeah, and in advance too, links to their channels are all in the description of this video. Just click on their name, it'll take you right there to sub. If you haven't, why haven't you yet? What's wrong with you? Thank you again, Jay. If you want, you can leave now. You don't have to stick around for the whole grab-assing thing, and yeah, you can get the hay.
I'll make it to the end. I'm already all the way
here. Fair enough. AC, how about you? What you got coming up?
Well, like last weekend, it was a pretty crazy weekend. Streaming the new Halo remake that came out, so I'm trying to like kind of take a short break. So hopefully next weekend, I know you and I have something planned, but I'm gonna try to stream a new game or like a different game, like a retro game. And I'm stuck between two. One of them I could probably beat in 2 streams. The other one I might have to take like a whole month to beat. Because man, when September comes around, all of us, but I'm gonna be especially really busy off stream. So I have to really figure out what I'm gonna nail down for stream. So it's still kind of up in the sky right now what I'm gonna be doing content wise. I have a care package coming from you soon, so I know there's a bunch of games in there that I ordered that I'll probably do like an unboxing video for. And I depends on what happens. I try to take some shorts or do some small videos of some gameplay or some items that I pick up. So my goal is to try to do some more gameplay clips and put them up on X because our buddy Dread Roberts he's been riding the algorithm rave on X with just gameplay clips. X has been rewarding people for putting videos on there instead of just complaining about stuff. So I'm gonna try that, see how that works, and yeah, that's really it.
Yes, he's going to complete the trilogy. We got to bully him because I know one of the games that you must play.
Oh yes, so that game we'll wait till later, but that'll probably be the end of this year. Yeah, we're definitely gonna stream that game.
We must do it. The prophecy must be fulfilled to fully to bring you into the brotherhood.
To bring balance to the force.
Exactly. Grim, you don't stream, but I got a better one for you.
All right.
Recommend a game.
Recommend a game. Okay. This one's a sort of a cop out. Let me give you 2 because I'm going to give you one that immediately comes to mind.
Okay.
And then I'm going to see if I can scroll back and find one that's maybe a little more niche. But the one I want to recommend immediately, you've probably all heard about, or maybe you haven't seen that it's recently released into 1.0, but that is Pal World.
Oh, I have been hooked on it. I haven't stopped playing it.
It's so good. I just want to throw out here that Pocket Pair maybe got some reputation when it was first coming out as like Pokemon with guns. People were trying to say, it's just a ripoff of Pokemon or whatever. This game is genuinely very good, and especially the content added with the 1.0 update, the last 2 regions. The closest point of comparison that I can make for the final area of the game is to Elden Ring, of all things.
Oh wow!
The level design that is on display, especially in the last 2 areas, is incredible. I think this studio has some incredible things ahead of it. The earlier sort of stuff that was available in early access, you can tell it was a smaller team. That budget, all the millions of copies they sold, probably way more than they ever expected. They really put that money to good use. I think this is either a franchise that will have, and maybe they'll just keep doing updates to this game. Either this franchise or future games from Pocket Pair, you should keep an eye on. This is a talented studio that is, I think, not even with the millions of copies it sold, not getting enough attention.
Grim, I don't mean to cut in, but I know you mentioned earlier you like farm sims. Had you seen the trailer for their Pal Farm game that they were making?
Pal Farm? No, I'm not familiar.
You got to check it out. It's they're doing a farm sim, kind of like Pokopia. Both actually kind of got announced at the same time. It was kind of hilarious. Just with the whole, Nintendo and Pokemon battle with Pal World. I think Pokopia got announced first, and then immediately after, like 2 days later, Pal World announced Pal Farm. So it was just kind of funny timing, but it does look like a really good game. So I definitely recommend you check out that trailer. If you like Pal World and Farm Sims, I think you'll probably like that.
Interesting. Well, like I said, keep an eye out for their next game. There you go. Let's see if I can find one that's a little more niche that maybe people haven't heard of. It caught me off guard.
Well, not to derail Pal World, they did publish Windrose, the pirate open world game, and I played a little bit of that, and I had a lot of fun with it. I know they didn't
Oh, I didn't know that
develop
was
it, but
them.
Yeah, Pocket Pair did Windrose? I didn't know that.
Yeah, they
That's
published
one
it.
That's one I just scrolled past.
No
I was like,
kidding.
oh, yeah.
It's a really cool game. I don't have the time for open world games like that anymore. But it was fun to jump into it and mess around, and it's definitely one of those games like playing with friends like just really elevates it. So
I'm pretty sure just like 2 days ago on the 30th or the 31st, maybe yesterday, that Pal World dropped their first TCG. I'm almost positive, right?
Yeah, I've been seeing people posting about picking up packs and
I want to get my hands on some. I didn't get a pre-order in time because I just was in my own world and forgot about it. So I'd like to get them at a reasonable price and not, second market price, but we'll see.
I can't do it anymore, bro. It's too much money.
I know.
Right,
I know.
Here's another recommendation you might not have heard of.
Okay, let's hear it.
This one is called Dragon Sword Awakening. This is a game that looks like it should be a gacha, a free-to-play gacha, and that's actually how it started out. Devs who had worked on previous gacha games, the people who worked on Genshin, some other games, and they had a falling out with their original publisher and decided to go independent. And basically, they took a game, an anime game with like Genshin sort of style combat, and it is a full-priced game. You buy the game and you get the whole game. There's no microtransactions, none of that. As a fan of anime and anime style games and a hater of gacha, like I've been begging for anime games like this for years, and it seems like really we're only getting the Tales of games every like 5 to 6 years. So like this is if you like anime games but you don't like the gacha monetization, this might be one to check out. It's nothing too terribly special. It's pretty generic sort of anime stuff, but it's good. It's a good anime game, and you don't have to worry about gacha.
On top of that, too, it's only on Steam for people wondering, and it's only $30. It has a very positive rating, too, as well, if you're interested in that, too.
Yeah, it came out last week.
So there you go. So
it looks cool.
If you're looking for a nice game, maybe does you have a Steam Deck?
Yeah.
Is it Steam Deck verified? Do you know?
I haven't checked. Funny you mentioned Steam Deck. I've actually got my Steam machine coming in tomorrow.
Ooh, curious to hear their thoughts about that.
Yeah.
Need to hear more about that. But yeah, that will kind of do it for this show over there. So everyone, thank you for stopping by tonight. We'll be back next week. Like I said, we're really going to try to push out some videos this upcoming week with some game recommendations and all that stuff for the month of August. And then we'll be back next Wednesday. And I believe we're going to have an interview with the lead dev of Lucid, a little small indie game that's coming to Steam right now. You could go check it out. And it has a demo. So if you want to go check that out, I know our friend Mr. Nerdy Neo here in the chat streamed it recently. So if you want to go check out his gameplay, you can go to his channel as well. And with that being said, everyone, have yourself a very wonderful weekend. Stay cool, stay safe, and everyone, have a good one. Good night.